Hello again, friends!
Oh.
Happy New Year! Am I loud? I must be loud. I'll be adjusting these settings.
You're screaming, and I don't know why.
Welcome back to another year and another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here wherever you find us. Happy 2025. I'm your host, the Great Brian Last. That was the theme to the Great Brian Last. And here is the star of the Drive Thru. He's feeling good today, Mr. Jim Cornette.
What if we don't want to be found? What about that, wherever you find us? What if we're trying not to be found? What if we're trying to evade detection? What then, oh great Brian Last? Where do they turn then?
It's not.
We ain't got no answers.
No, it's not about the process of finding someone. It's wherever you are found.
First thing I say to you in a year, and you got nothing.
It's wherever you may be, wherever you find yourself, not wherever someone finds you.
Well, I find myself in betwixt a rock and a hard place. First of all, we left the people when we did a show 2 weeks ago, and then we announced we were taking our Christmas break, and the fine omnibuy have been out there and forced to keep the people happy on the podcast feeds and the YouTube channel and things of that nature. And we had grand plans for our vacation. And this is the first show we've done in those 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, not only we left the people with a cliffhanger, I was starting to get a little sniffly. I was starting to feel under the weather. I said, am I getting something? Well, we had Starcade of sickness because we blew it out. Not only did I get sick, but Stacy got sick, and you got sick, and your entire family got sick over our 2-week Christmas New Year vacation. Am I exaggerating the level of germophobia here that's been going on amongst our various clans for the last 2 weeks?
There's been a lot of sickness, and for the record, I wasn't on vacation. We didn't record, but I worked every single day.
Well, you know what? Our vacation from the world, where we attempt to get away from this for just to clear, as Ernie Ladd would say, to wring your brain out because it's like a sponge. And then start the year anew. I had projects that I was wanting to accomplish. And this story will have a silver lining here in a minute, folks. I'm not just going to vent about the holidays and cuss Christmas. It might take me a second to get to the silver lining, but I had the things that I wanted to do that required physical activities, the things I've been putting off, the shampooing of the carpets, the rearranging of the garage/stock room, as well as you workaholic. I was going to spend time in a quality fashion with Stacy and little Harley Quinn. But I wanted to feel good to do it. But the pretty much a couple of hours, I think, after you and I finished recording that last program, I can't even remember, time blurs, I decided that I was sick. Do you hear that? I decided that I was sick, and Stacy had been sniffling all week, and we said, we're just going to go. We got a cold or something. We're going to go to the urgent care right over. It's a mile and a half away. We're going to get some antibiotics and some of them anabolic steroids they give people, and boom, it's going to knock it right out. Could you hear that snap, just like that, snap of the fingers?
I've never heard anyone just say it like that. Do you actually say, can I have some anabolic steroids?
No, I mean, whatever. I'd say, give me the steroids, and they determine whether I need that. No, this is the steroids they give you when you got a cold or a flu or whatever. It's the prednisone and the bug tussle and whatever else it is.
And clearly people need that, and it helps them. I just don't know how many people walk into the doctor's office and demand steroids.
No, I'm saying give me some goddamn Decadurabolin, motherfucker. For you old-time bodybuilders out there, Hercules Hernandez did a fucking promo. I was managing him in Mid-South Wrestling, and I do the brunt of the setup with him and Hacksaw Duggan, and then I pitch it to Herc, and he fucking hits a double bicep, and his arms are massive, and he's fucking 280 pounds with like 2% body fat. He says, see that, Duggan? 10 Decadurabolin a day. It was a different time. But anyway, we went over to the aforesaid urgent care, and being good citizens, because we got the sniffles and we're sneezing, we're wearing our masks as we go into this medical facility, right? And the staff there are wearing their masks also, except the people behind the glass window aren't. I think, but when they take you back, they're wearing a mask and et cetera also. And the first clue, because now you've been seeing on the news, there's a rise in RSV, the respiratory virus. There's a rise in COVID now. There's a rise in all kinds of illnesses, flus, and respiratory ailments because people, once again, have gone back to all their sloppy fucking habits. More on this in a moment. So anyway, we only have said there's never anybody in this place. We only have to wait about 10 minutes. But actually, unbelievably enough, 2 people came in during the course of time where 10 minutes we're in the waiting room. They're coming into a place where sick people go, even if they're not sick in a viral fashion. Maybe they've herniated their hymen or broken a fucking, coccyx bone or whatever, but they come in with no mask on and they're sitting across from us with masks on, sneezing. And they're just playing with their fucking phones. So anyway, they take us back, and the first thing they say is, I said, well, we both have the same thing. And well, they put her in one room and me in the other, but I was referring to Stacy also, and as we both have the same thing, and I think I usually get this kind of thing, and blah, blah, blah. He said, well, no, the nurse first said, well, we've had a lot of COVID positives today, so the doctor is telling us to do COVID checks on everyone. So again, 2 of these people had walked in the fucking waiting room into a medical facility where a bunch of fucking people with COVID had come, and they're just barefaced and don't give a shit. More on this in a moment. So they do stick the thing up our nose, right? And then the doctor comes in about 10 minutes later. Well, I say comes in the loosest description of the word. He's wearing a fucking mask, and he's standing in a doorway. And he's shouting the instructions. And he said, well, your wife's positive for COVID. Yours hasn't come back yet. And I'm thinking, well, what the? And, oh, yes, ding. You got it too. Almost 5 years I avoided this fucking thing. And we've tracked it down to where either it was Stacy's MRI on her back or me going to meet with my dear financial advisor. And he wasn't sick, so we assume it may have been Stacy's medical visit, but nevertheless, they say, oh, yeah, there's all kinds of people now. It's blah, blah, blah. And you don't see anybody wearing a mask. But here you see the doctor wearing a mask and standing in the doorway yelling instructions at me about the medicine they're going to give me from 8 feet away while I'm wearing a mask. I mean, people with leprosy get closer contact from medical professionals. He didn't want any part of this shit. And by the way, he's wearing a mask, and that's where the point I was going to make. Before I get to the silver lining, I still get on Twitter and whatever. People are, well, what did you think when you made all those comments about wearing a mask and COVID? Now that it's been proven that masks don't work, now that they're the now that it's been proven crowd. No matter what batshit thing that they don't want to believe is true that is actually happening, they will find, well, who's proven it? Where? On Fox News. They believe that shit. Nothing else in the world. They believe that shit. Now that it's been proven that January 6th wasn't an insurrection. In what universe? They believe it. Now that it's been proven that masks don't work. Besides the fact that you could go to the Mayo Clinic website or the CDC website or go to any doctor telling him you've got a communicable disease and he's going to be staring at you from behind a fucking face mask. You idiots, slobbering morons. So apparently everybody around the country's been sick for the past 6 weeks or so, according to all these reports that are coming out. And they're just going around slobbering all over everybody again because we didn't learn our fucking lesson and because irresponsible, criminal-minded fucking nutcases get on the goddamn news and tell you the opposite of what common sense dictates. That if you'd cover your fucking face up, you wouldn't spread your germs around. You fucking filthy, filthy people. But I mentioned a silver lining, didn't I, Brian?
I will say this. I do think it should be mandatory to wear a face mask in a medical, like when I go into a medical building and there's lots of doctor's offices, like that's the one place. Who wants to sit in the waiting room when people are coughing and sneezing and snotting all over themselves? I don't care if it's COVID or what.
Do you want to go to the grocery and pick out the produce when people are snotting and coughing all over the cabbage?
Also make it mandatory on the Long Island Railroad. Some of those people are disgusting.
Well, there you go. Hey, I'll tell you what, that fucking train trip that the Midnight Express and I took that time from, what was it, Philadelphia to New Haven, guy next to Stan Lane smelled like a goat. Stan didn't eat right for 3 days.
Anyway, back to your story. Back to the seriousness.
Back to the story. So, I wanted, before I get to let me jot down the word silver lining. This may take another second or two. See, I'm full of the piss and vinegar today, folks. So they give us medicine that will combat this fucking disease now that we've got. I'm thinking, oh, God, is this the end for little Rico? And I told you the next day, I said, I've been sicker, but I've not been madder because of the timing. And they prescribed the medicine. We'll find it. That's a whole thing going back and forth till they finally got it ready. But guess what, Brian? And what is the name of the shit? Paxlovid, I believe, is what they gave us. And in all honesty, it did work. You could tell it. You could even taste it working. But we have more on that in a second. Do we have to talk about wrestling today? Fuck that shit. So at the pharmacy, we have insurance, right? We have insurance. We pay for it ourselves because I am self-employed, because I'm the only boss I've ever been able to get along with. But guess how much this stuff costs if you have insurance? At least our insurance. For a box of, you take 3 tablets, 3 in the morning and 3 in the evening for 5 days. So whatever that math is, that's how many tablets is in this box. Guess how much it cost us with insurance?
Like a copay?
The cost of the prescription
$80.
after the insurance pays the deal or negotiates the deal that it does. It's not a copay.
$80.
You are incorrect. I won't even milk it. $375 per box. So $7.50 for the both of us, along with $1.23 for the optional cough syrup. But guess how much it would cost? Yes.
And you haven't paid $375 for a box since on trade ride to New Haven.
Oh, I'll tell you what. I haven't paid $375 for a box since I used it to get somebody over when they came out of it. But guess how much it would cost if you don't have insurance? And I know, again, people around the world, the United States, we accept this kind of thing because the only people that want to change it keep getting slapped down by the billionaires and the current ruling class. If you didn't have insurance, it said cash pay. It was fucking like $1,300 per box. So the two of us would have paid almost $3,000 for this shit to save us from the scourge of COVID, which is probably a reason why a lot of people are walking around with the scourge of COVID.
But what exactly, versus waiting it out, did it make a remarkable improvement?
Yes, because the very next day, or later on that night and the next day, we both felt like complete shit. Whereas Stacy was sweating nonstop and is sweating to the point where she gets so wet, then any kind of breeze, with the coldness, right? Oh, God, is sweating and shivering. Whereas I'm the opposite. I've got a sweatshirt and a fucking fleece jacket on and 2 pair of sweatpants in the house with a blanket over me and the heat turned up. We had to go to opposite ends of the house because we couldn't stand the climate. And I didn't eat really almost anything for 2 days. Could have cared the fuck whether they made food or not. And the snotting and the wheezing, cough was not bad. And then, but taking this stuff within 48 hours or even a little bit less, you could start to tell an improvement. Then I spent 2 days eating everything I could find in the fucking house and felt normal and stopped sweating and, had a normal temperature. But the shit makes your breath taste, or not your breath, but your mouth. It tastes like you've been sucking pond water. I told you it ruined the taste of mouthwash. And that was, so you could tell it was working. But anyway, then the lingering symptoms have just been still snottiness and a little spittiness and general don't give a fuckedness. But over the course of the first 3 days, we're not that happy. But anyway, the silver lining. Whereas I'd planned to do all that stuff, instead, I didn't do any goddamn thing. And I would have liked to have felt better, but we had a wonderful time sitting on the goddamn couch and petting the dog and eating when we finally regained our appetite. And it's the first time that I have taken that much time to not do anything in over 10 years. So my brain is wrung out. And now I'm not real fucking happy about commencing this all over. We got to do this for another year. It's what you're saying at the top of the program with this brand new year thing.
At least another year. I mean, we have commitments going to 2029, 2031.
Wait a minute. I don't know if I have commitments going to 2031. You didn't tell me anything with a 3 in front of it.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it off air.
These other fucking suckers will pay us for, well, nevertheless. Well, I'm thinking about, I'm trying to constrict my retirement age down while I still can before the inevitable financial collapse of the United States with the new criminal regime and all this other stuff begins to hit. I'm going to enjoy some peace and quiet. And I got the energy about 3 days ago to actually do something and tried to move some things around and tweaked my back. And now I'm sitting sideways. But that gave me another excuse. Just sit back down on the couch and say, fuck it, and pet the dog. And Stacey and I watched more television. And since we got to talk about wrestling today, then the experience next week is where I'm going to talk about all the other non-wrestling things that has struck my mind. It'll probably be more interesting than this fucking fever dream Tony Khan's in. And we'll talk about some emails and some Christmas presents and acknowledgments and everything on the experience. So there's another cliffhanger for you. Wait for that for either 3 days or maybe 6 months. I may take another vacation. What do you want to do here today?
Well, I mean, a lot has happened over the last, what's it been? It's been a while.
Back in the before time.
There's been a pay-per-view, there's been TV shows, people have said stupid things, lots of other stupid things. So, I mean, there's lots going on. I guess, chronologically, we should start with the AEW pay-per-view Worlds End, which took place last year.
And you know what? It may have been better for him if it had.
What, if the world had ended?
Yes.
Come on.
Well, then we would have been saved the TV show they did on the first day of the new year. I think they should have pulled a Costanza. They should have tried to do something to go out on a high point and then pray that the world ended before they had to do anything else again. But they didn't.
They were in Orlando, Florida, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's typically where people think the end of the world begins. Orlando, Florida.
If it's not the end of the world, you can see it from there. I'm trying to, yes, I have my notes here now. Orlando in a, quote, jam-packed arena. That's what the commentator, not the fancy twice-baked tater, but the commentator said, old sockface. They were in a jam-packed arena. As long as the camera could see the seat, it was packed.
Someone wrote to us. They said, did he have a stroke? Because he's having trouble just completing sentences or thoughts. He starts trying to say something and he loses his train of thought.
You know what he's got now? Is he's got, what do they call it? We're talking about Excalibur, folks. The guy with the fucking nylon panties on his head.
The guy who would be the worst commentator in wrestling if he wasn't sitting next to Tony Schiavone.
Well, but now, depending on how you define commentator, you still got Officer Bar Brady to deal with back there. He's back on the show in force. But nevertheless, what do they call the thing when gymnasts start second-guessing themselves and their heads can't process or control where they are in the air? You know what and they start making
Lucha Libre.
mistakes. No, they can't process where they are on the ground either. I think old Sockface has that now. I think he's realized that he's said all of his shit that he can say about the tornillos and the, whatever the fuck fancy moves names. And he's doing the same shit over and over again. And he's trying to figure out some way to be a real announcer Pinocchio. And it ain't coming across, and he's got the jimmies or whatever, the Jimmy legs. But anyway, back to this pay-per-view in the jam-packed arena. God, I know this is going to happen in the next week, but if I see another tournament ever on this television or any of their associated programming, it will be too soon. What the... Can I just, before we start talking about the first match was Osprey and Felcher in the tournament, can I set the tournament up? We would be remiss in our standards as professional broadcasters if we didn't, for our audience who didn't pay attention to this tomfoolery, recap how these semifinal and final matches came together on this pay-per-view. So just so the people know, right?
Right.
Or you're with me.
I didn't think I thought it was an implied right.
Well, I had to breathe because I'm a COVID survivor, goddammit.
I thought it was an implied breath.
I'm going to start a fucking GoFundMe. So I don't want to take it upon myself as a mere novice in these Blue League and Gold League and B Block and A Block and H&R Block tournaments. I'm a novice. I want to go to a professional to explain to us, Brian Last, how these semifinal and final tournament matches came to be on this pay-per-view. I'm going to Uncle Dave.
Oh, okay.
This was written in the Wrestling Observer. Guy sent me this copy, but I don't know I guess it was the Observer that covered the Dynamite and Rampage tapings in New York's Hammerstein Ballroom. Because the way that Uncle Dave describes it as the show that they taped that night was built around setting up the Continental Classic semifinals. The booking came together strongly on the last show as every match had meaning. Are you ready to hear the meaning in the Gold League, Brian?
Please.
Well, when Will Ospreay lost to Ricochet, it seemed impossible for him to make it because he had to beat Brody King to finish with 9 points, and everyone figured Claudio Castagnoli would beat Commander and be at 12. If Ricochet beat Darby Allin, he'd be at 12, and they would be the 2 to go. If Allin beat Ricochet, Ricochet and Ospreay would tie at 9, and Allin would have beaten Ricochet and Ospreay, so he'd go with Castagnoli. King would have 9 with a win, and would have a tiebreaker over Allin, but not over Castagnoli or Ricochet. But Castagnoli lost, and Ricochet drew Allin. That put Ricochet in, and Castagnoli and Ospreay tied for second, but Ospreay won their match to advance. Got it?
I have no idea. No, I do not have it.
Well, then you gotta learn, baby. Learn, baby, learn. Meltzer Inferno. Learn, baby, learn. Inferno, mother day. So now the Blue League. Don't be back there cackling. Share it with the whole class. The Blue League now. This is an interesting case. This is clear cut right here, straight down the middle. The Blue League saw everyone but Beast Mortos still alive going into the last day. Services for him apparently will be taking place this weekend. Okada had 7 points and Benjamin had 6 going into their match. The winner would likely go to the Final Four. Kyle Fletcher had 9 points, Daniel Garcia had 7, and Mark Briscoe was in the clubhouse with 9. An Okada versus Benjamin draw would put Briscoe in the playoffs. Benjamin would die Briscoe. I think that means tie. I don't think they're suggesting any kind of homicide. Benjamin would tie Briscoe with a win, but beat him head-to-head, so he'd likely be in. Okada beating Benjamin put him at 10. Had Garcia beat Fletcher, Okada and Garcia would be tied, and they had a draw. It was said since they both made it, there would be a coin flip of who faces Ospreay and who faces Ricochet. If Fletcher won, that gave him 12 and Okada 10. A draw was all Fletcher needed because he'd have 10, as would Okada, and he'd finish first based on the head-to-head win. It's as plain as the nose on your fucking face.
The booking all came together. That's where you started.
So that's what they're trying to sell the people in fucking Cleveland.
You brought up before the idea you don't want to see another tournament. The Owen Hart usually starts, what, in the spring?
Oh, God.
Right? I mean, that's the annual spring thing, and then this is it. And then I think there's other ones randomly throughout the year. This is clearly something Tony Khan loves. I'm sure he spends lots of times and lots of pads figuring out the outcomes and the points. Dave loves it too. I don't think it connects to the regular fan.
I don't think it connects to the regular human brain. But anyway, so we had Ospreay and Fletcher in that have taken the path that we have just described to you, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, all of the top AEW talent, Will here and old Kyle here, they're all MDs. You know that, Brian. They got their degrees. They're MDs. Move doers. And again, for the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like. But they can't contain themselves. Because for the only audience that these guys care about getting over to, this is what they want. But a billionaire is spending money on these people to do more than lose ratings and lose interest because it's all the same goddamn shit. They think they're in a video game and they're going to base that on everything they do. And they're trying to make Kyle, as we said, 18 months in an OVW or a small regional territory, if something like that existed. I'm not talking about today's OVW. I'm talking about in the day. You know, you could develop him, or NXT possibly. But no, you ain't gonna get, he's bald. He looks years older because he did look 14, but he also looks miles more boring. It ain't all together yet. They're doing it out. They're doing the rehearsals in front of the fucking audience on opening night. And they started 100 miles an hour with a choreographed routine. And they have no reactions to what is happening because they're facially so intent on nailing the next flip and ducking the next fucking swing your partner do-si-do. And it's either by the numbers memorized swing dancing, or everything that they do individually looks fake, so they do a bunch more of them thinking that will make it better. They'd go on the floor forever and the referee gawks. The camera stayed off of Ospreay for so long so he could get his color that I thought they'd forgotten he was there. And then Fletcher now is a blood licker. Did you see the blood licking, Brian, off of his boots and everything?
Yeah, I saw it. I hate whenever they do anything like that, drinking blood or licking their hands covered in blood. I'm not a fan of that.
I mean, again, you know, if it was Abdullah the Butcher that came to your town once a fucking year doing it, oh my God, but it's like but at least he wasn't drinking it out of a water fountain like old Whoosy Whatsy was, a Swerve. But anyway, but this is what they do. Ospreay they'll get some heat on him and then he'll make a big comeback with his flips, and then Kyle will suplex him on his head, so Ospreay will just stand up and grab Kyle and do a backflip with him, and then they'll both lay there. Okay, Go up and hit somebody in the head with a baseball bat and knock them down and let them pop right back up and then give you a uranagi, and then they'll realize that their brains are melting down the back of their shoulder blade. They traded chops while daring the other guy to give them chops, and then they flipped back and forth some more. I wrote down while they're not selling, but then they both sell the guy that got hit and the guy that hit the guy that got hit. And I guess that's to prove that they do sell, whether it makes any sense or not. And then they did a headbutt exchange where they both got on their knees and they traded headbutts over and over, not working headbutts, not using their hand, but just headbutting each other. But it was both fake and real. They were hard enough to hurt, but obviously being pulled to try not to hurt too bad. So was that worth the fucking potential hematoma, Brian, when you're trying to do something that you think will convince people that it's somehow real when you can still tell it's not, but you're really hurting yourself? Help me.
No, I don't think it's a good idea, and I think it's something that even hardcore wrestling AEW fans probably are uncomfortable with. Again, Shibata had to have his brain removed, according to the Wrestling Observer, after the headbutt spot.
Yeah.
It was that spot.
And it doesn't even make me uncomfortable because I don't care about either of these guys, whether they do brain damage themselves, but it makes me uncomfortable as a professional to see people do stupid, phony shit that also hurts. So there's that. And then Ospreay kicked out of a brain buster and a power bomb and a lot of leg slaps, and immediately jumped up and grabbed the fucking guy that had just done all those things, old Kyle Felcher, and fucking picked him up and gave him a Styles Clash 1, 2, 3. I've never seen he brainbustered Ospreay, and he power bombed him, and he kicked and slapped that leg a couple of times, and Ospreay just like, oh, fuck it. Styles Clash 1, 2, 3.
That is something you see a lot in modern wrestling. The idea, I mean, the selling's an issue everywhere, but someone gets killed with a bunch of stuff and all of a sudden they have a burst of energy and they jump up and do something ridiculous. In this case, it was the finish with someone else's finish. The Styles Clash.
Well, yeah, and again, I know that, you know...
Why not the Tiger Driver? He was so afraid to use it and then he used it. Why not use it against the guy you were afraid that he knows where your kids go to school and everything?
Well, maybe he's still afraid because he knows where his kids go to. I don't know, but I know that Pockets, the mascot, does the stunner, and, you know, and that just reminds people of Austin, but, you know, and now Owens, and Austin and Owens have the connection where he doesn't mind it, he used it, so whatever, but he's a joke. But if this guy's going to be fucking a legitimate top guy, why is he using another guy's fucking finish? Again, the joke, the mascot does the Roman Reigns's too. He does everybody. It's the fucking rib. But not a serious guy. Anyway, and not in a non-serious way. So
you didn't like that match at all? You didn't like it at all?
Well, how can there again? I've said they're both great athletes and they can do wonderful shit that if it was produced, if they had been taught by anybody that knew what the fuck they were doing before they figured that they fucking knew everything that they needed to know, if that makes sense to you, then yes, both and Ospreay. He's amazing. He can sell and make the comeback with the I sound like Pat Patterson now. But not when it's just a video game nonsense match over and over, and it looks like everybody else is just executed better, but nothing is over because the individual moves aren't over. The fucking no, you cannot prostitute the idea of doing any of these things, picking a guy up and dropping him right on his fucking head for a 2 count. And then the guy pops up a second later and does something. You cannot prostitute the entire business just to let these guys live out their fantasies of being Olympic level gymnasts and of some kind of action video game. They could both be taught and produced and developed to be good wrestlers, but in left to their own devices, they do this mark fucking bullshit. And there you have it. Sorry.
Well, let me ask it this way, too. The fans there really seemed into this more than anything else on the show. And they had an opening match, and we know how things work there. These guys did everything they wanted to do. There wasn't an agent saying, hey, hold back a little bit. They went a while. They did everything they wanted to do. The fans were into it. The fans didn't react to shit the rest of the night.
Exactly, because you don't put the goddamn second coming of Jesus Christ on first and then end up the show with the fucking, what do you want to have for the Last Supper?
I mean, like Brett versus Owen opened the show and was an amazing match, but they didn't do everything. You know, they didn't kick out of everything.
No, and then it was Wrestle fucking Mania, and there was still some things to do.
Should WWE have their eyes on when Kyle Fletcher's contract comes up, based on his size, his age, and what he can do?
Well, the only thing is, yes to all of those things, but I don't know what kind. Is he one of these knuckleheads like Ricochet that obviously just wants to play in traffic? Or is he a guy that's coachable and teachable and can adapt to working with the professionals? That's the only thing I don't know, because I've never met the guy. I haven't heard anything about it. I'm sure he's a wonderful fellow, but does he understand that he's on an indie level kind of path now, and he would need to have the input of real professionals? So, but yeah, no, they both can do all kinds of shit. That's not the problem. The problem is they do all this shit. And the people like it, yes, because it's crazy in the building in front of them. And then what's going to follow it? Number one, so they've shit on everybody else on the card. And number two, what can you, again, they're pouring bleach down people's throats and they're throwing them off balconies through furniture. And there's a flamethrower on the fucking guy, right? And nobody still cares. Nobody believes any of it, even when the guy's really on fucking fire. It's just bullshit to these fans. Yay! But that's why they're tuning out, because how many more motherfuckers can you set on fire? They've seen it. You need Agent Orange now, where the skin will melt off. That's why things don't get over, because none of these personalities are over, or their reasons for interacting, a la Seth Rollins and CM Punk, or any story that the WWE has going today, practically, where people care about the people involved and why they're treating each other that way, so they don't have to fucking amputate limbs. They've got the pile driver over again. These stupid motherfuckers are kicking out leaping tombstone pile drivers on fucking stairs because they're idiots and they're marks for themselves, and the billionaire that's paying them more money than most of them are worth is a mark for that shit too. And that's why that he's spending all his fucking money to fucking do this instead of create any type of serious fucking competition.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but part of the issue, like I said before, the wrestlers decide what they're going to do in the ring. There's no agent overruling anyone. Tony's not going to do it. And part of the reason for all this is Tony's in the back, listening to his favorite songs from the 80s, trying to find songs that will fit in different places in the AEW universe with his Raycon earbuds.
Well, that's a thing that I almost forgot about. Well, it's been so long since we did one of these fun, but it's been a year, Brian. I almost forgot that we could mention some of our friends on the program as well in this type of thing, and our friends at Raycon are friends of ours, and therefore they're friends of yours. They're forever friends, and that's why. Now that I think about it, Tony's back there, he's watching the monitor, he sees what's going on, but he doesn't realize that it doesn't make sense because he's listening to, let's say, the Pointer Sisters on his Raycon everyday wireless earbuds. But folks, you don't have to just listen to tired 80s music. No, you can go for the classics, the Zeppelin, the Stones, or you can go for the modern day stuff with the ditties and the daddies. I don't know who these modern people are.
Let's not go for them. Let's also not put down the Pointer Sisters as being tired 80s things. What the hell is that?
As far as for a wrestling application, it certainly is, but we'll get to that when we talk about Dynamite. But folks, you can even listen to us on your Raycon everyday earbuds. They're the perfect gym buddy. Let's say you're in, I'm not talking about me, Jim.
Oh, you got a new buddy, I hear.
Well, it's a It's one of those bouncy buddies. But no, it's at the gym, GYM, where the gymnasium where you go to work out. You're going to listen to something while you're sweating to the oldies, sweating to the newbies. Sweating makes the world go round. Or let's say you want to tune out a coworker. Just put these things in your ear. They're so small and they're wireless. Most nearsighted people won't even notice them. You can just nod and smile and you can listen to whatever you want to listen to. Or let's say you want to talk on the phone. Well, you can talk into your phone, but you can hear them on your Raycons, can't you? And if you're on a three-way call, well, you can hear one son of a gun on the left or one son of a gun on the right, and you can just drop out of the middle of the conversation and let them fight it out. Because they've got active multi-point connectivity where you can pair these two suckers up and then let them go at it while you stand back and watch the carnage. And they come with active noise cancellation. So if the profanity gets too much, you can just, boom, cancel that noise right now. As a matter of fact, when you're talking to somebody and you activate the active noise cancellation, boom, a recording comes up to say, you've been canceled for your noise, motherfucker.
Again, that does not happen. Again, these are features that are actually part of Raycon, but these are not applications or ways to use it that Jim has no idea. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, you mean to say when you cancel somebody's noise, you don't even have the courtesy to tell them about it?
I don't know. Again, it's noise canceling, but I don't know if that's exactly how it's applied. So it's a feature.
Well,
it's certainly a feature they have, the fine Raycon earbuds.
Yes. Well, you want to talk about features. They start at just half the price of the other premium audio brands, but they sound just as good, and they come in a variety of vibrant colors. So you can match your style, or you can match your skin tone, or I like the checkerboard. Really, a lot of people come up and try to do a double jump and get me to king them. But right now, if you want to go to buyraycon.com, that's BUYRAYCON.com/JCE, you can get 15% off site-wide of everything you buy there. And as we've said, let's say you buy 10 pair, that's 150% off. That means that they're going to pay you half just to take them. It's amazing what you can do with this new math. So if you think 2025 is going to suck, folks.
We're using the old math, ladies and gentlemen.
It hadn't come in yet to use the new math.
No, new math is not a thing yet, no.
Oh, well, okay. Well, using the old math, you're still going to get 15% off. So 2025 is going to suck. We know that already. So just don't listen to it. Listen to what you want to listen to on your Raycon everyday wireless earbuds. 15% off at buyraycon.com/JCE.
That's right. Raycon. A friend of ours. They could be friends of yours. And speaking of friends, nobody loves friends more than Tony Khan. And it was a gathering of the friends at AEW's Worlds End.
Well, another tournament match followed the first tournament match, and I don't know if it followed it, but it came afterwards. Let's put it that way. See, folks, I would have been killer on the Borscht Belt in the 50s, doing all the clubs in the Poconos. Ricochet,
the Catskills.
The Catskills. I want to work it out on the road first, and then go to the Catskills. Another tournament match, Ricochet and our friend Okada. Because I can't even have any fun with this fucking broken down shell of a man by giving him a nickname anymore. Please, can't somebody put him in a chair and wheel him the fuck out? Jeez, so Ricochet was a big baby face. He came in with great fanfare, and from what we are led to believe is millions of dollars of commitment on Tony Khan's part from the WWE to debut, and they loved him. And has he been there 3 months? And he managed to somehow go from being a fucking raving babyface that everybody was saying was the savior of the company to, we don't really like this guy. Boy, this guy's turned out to be a fucking nerd.
Well, did you see? There was footage at the Hammerstein. I think that was one of the shows that aired during our break. I think it was him against Ospreay, and the fans, instead of streamers, were throwing toilet paper at him.
Well, yes, and then they actually did something on one of the TV tapings that they did, or no, on this pay-per-view here. What am I thinking about? It's on this coming up. See, my mind. I'm a COVID survivor, goddammit. That started in Ring of Honor back in the late 2000s in Manhattan Center in the Hammerstein Ballroom, where they, for the big title matches, they would throw streamers, right? Like they did in Japan. And it was a cool visual in that building, and everybody, you've seen it. They throw the streamers, blah, blah, blah.
They were doing it before then, though, for the record.
Who was doing it before then?
Ring of Honor. They were doing it before the Manhattan Center in, 2009 or anything.
Okay, but what I'm saying to you is in that particular building. I'm not saying they invented the concept in the whole fucking universe. Right. I'm saying in that building, they were throwing the streamers, and then, and I can't remember who it was, what heel it was, so I'd be happy to be, informed. But to be wise asses, the New York fans, instead of throwing streamers at them, they threw toilet paper. Like, you are the shit. So that's what the people were doing there, was they remembered from doing that years ago. That is not a thing that just happened. A lot of people may have seen it for the first time from their reaction. But then, that's what I'm saying, is bad enough when the fans do it, but the fans, then they actually make it part of the show where it's, they can't help but being cheesy, can they? Is what I'm saying to you.
So you're against the idea of embracing it?
Well, I think it's great when the fans do it, but when you've got the guys out there copying you've got a top babyface copying something the fans just did, what, organically, as the kids say, I think that looks cheesy, is what I'm saying to you. If he'd have thought of it, or if he'd have thunk of it first, is what I'm saying. But when the fans have already done it, and now, here comes Swerve stealing other people's material. I don't know. But that's the point I'm making also. Ricochet went from second coming to, can you please be going? Now the people hate him. He's a douchebag. His real personality is apparently showing through on Twitter. So now they've just not only made him a heel, but a nerd or a geek type that gets pushed around and or made fun of and or whatever. Has there ever been somebody that was, well, probably in this company, you can quote me 3 or 4 that started out so popular and got so fucking unpopular so quick, but maybe Mercedes, or even then. They still haven't thrown toilet paper at her.
Yeah, I think she almost has a slight recovery just because at least they like her matches. But with Ricochet, it's not that long ago where WWE at the end of his contract was giving him a push. And he was involved in that program with Braun Breaker on Raw. And it was the best stuff he ever did in WWE. And it was kind of, I guess, potentially a sample of how they would treat him going forward. And then he went to AEW, came in with a bunch of fanfare, got the big reaction the first night in. And now the fans are sick of him.
And the fans are throwing toilet paper at him, and one of the baby faces is wiping his ass with it and throwing it on top of him. So anyway, we got to get there first, folks, because Okada, seriously, help me. He looks like, facially, like he ought to be working in the accounting department and moves like he should be in a body cast. And he actually jumped up and tried to do a few things over the course of this night, but the announcers have to put him over like he's this, world-beating, incredible fucking athlete and wrestler, and what people are seeing doesn't fit. And they're wondering why the people don't give a shit besides people who already knew who the fuck he was. And nobody else, because if you've just seen this, what the fuck? And again, Ricochet and Okada, now who's the heel here? Okada was in the top heel group, the Lollipop Guild, with the Buckaroos until the last we saw of them on camera was they ran in fear out of the building, and that was it. So now this guy can't talk. He can't work. He looks like shit. He's got no angle going. But he beats every fucking body. The crowd was cheering him here because Ricochet is a bigger dick. But it was a glacial pace compared to the first match because there's no way that Okada could do anything like any Ricochet, Osprey, or Fletcher. But Ricochet tried to make up for it by going twice as fast. But, I mean, did you say Okada told the crowd to be quiet, and they didn't have a problem following that instruction? And then he ran crisscross around the ring, hitting the ropes 4 times while Ricochet was just sitting there on his ass dumbfounded. And then he ran up behind him and slapped him in the head. This guy is supposed to be the greatest tournament wrestler in the world, and he's doing Boogie Woogie Jimmy Valiant spots from 1993.
They kept saying that. I mean, by the end of the night, especially, and then on Dynamite, the greatest tournament wrestler ever.
And who gives a shit? And
and the fans have seen him in exactly 1 tournament. Where's Eddie Kingston? Didn't Eddie Kingston win this last year?
Well, yeah, but he hurt himself. Did he break his leg?
Did he? Or was that the time before that? Point is, he's been gone a long time. I forgot he was the Continental Champion.
Well, that's the thing is Okada, and then the last couple minutes, he'll turn it up a little bit, but he works like he's doing the walkthrough at 3:30 in the afternoon. And Ricochet is embracing being a heel to people, but now they've got a midget heel whose only appeal is doing flashy babyface shit for millions of dollars. And a lot of this was brutal. And then Okada says, "Oh, keep chopping me. Now let's do the fake forearms." Ricochet flipped some more, but he's a heel, so who gives a shit? Okada did the clumsy elbow off the top, gave the camera the finger. They flipped back and forth for a minute. Okada hit a drop kick, and Ricochet immediately reacted to that by picking Okada up and dropping him on his head and getting a 2 count. And then Ricochet hit a shooting star press off the top rope and got a 2 count. And then more kicks by, I'm reading my notes now, more kicks by both, and suddenly Okada jumped up and hit that shitty Rainmaker clothesline and beat him 1, 2, 3. So, again, leaping, flaming pile drivers can't stop you, but that one little short arm clothesline is deadly. The fuck? And then, do you want to get to the afterbirth or any comments on this match?
No, I mean, it was fine, I guess, for what it was. You kind of hit on the big thing. Okada coasts, and then he turns it up for the last few minutes, especially in the later match, but he did it here too. And I guess booking-wise, you had the tease of a potential Ricochet-Osprey rematch, but instead you got Okada-Osprey.
Well, you might have had a rematch, or you might have a deal where they both go in together, and one with 6 points and the other with 3 points, and then they have a draw, which is like kissing your sister with your finger up her ass.
Is that what that's like?
See, that would be the setup to the next tournament. So then Okada left, and Swerve came out and stood in the entranceway. And Ricochet told him, "I'm going to win this," or no, he ricocheted, and he told Ricochet that said he was going to win the tournament, but Swerve said if Ricochet blew it, he was going to embarrass him. And so now we're going to clean up your mess. And Nana came out with a fucking little red wagon full of toilet paper and gave it to the fans, and they threw it at Ricochet. But they had just previously done that at the Hammerstein in New York on their own, which is why I say it was at the. They're just trying. But anyway, so that and now Swerve has been reduced to coming out and giving the fans toilet paper. This supposed most dangerous man. It wasn't even a novel way to embarrass him. The fans had just done it. That's my point. All right, moving on. Correct? Or do you have any comments about the Tidy Bowl?
Moving on.
So then we get the Tijuana street fight for the women's title between Maria May and Thunder Rosa. Brian, you're aware of what the rules are of a Tijuana street fight women's division, aren't you?
Not specifically that stipulation. I know street fights. I have seen wrestlers from Tijuana. I don't remember if I've seen this match specifically before.
Well, it's no disqualification, weapons legal, falls count anywhere in the building, shitty booking. My New Year's resolution number 1 was not to watch girls' garbage matches. They cannot help themselves. They think this shit is good. And for the dwindling audience that they still maintain it might be, but after they've had the first match where they did everything physical that could possibly be done in a wrestling ring, then they follow it with a match that was not really as interesting. Then they have 2 girls come out and use chairs and trash cans and fight on the stage and spit tequila on each other and break open a piñata full of thumbtacks and roll around in the thumbtacks and use a logging chain. And finally, the finish of this girls' match is Maria May pile drives Thunder Rosa off the apron through a table to the floor. 1, 2, 3. And Tony Schiavone, and I quote, said, Thunder Rosa will have to be helped out after that. You think? My God, she was just run down by a Buddy bread truck. Well, somebody help her up and dust her off. She's going to need a hand to get back up on the curb. It's a fucking... Do you have any other observations about the girls' Tijuana street fight contest?
Now, no disrespect to either of the girls or women wrestlers, but...
I meant as much disrespect as possible, but you can do what you like.
But this was my break match. This was, I'm going to go outside and, do a couple things and then come back in.
Well, for a lot of people, this was their breaking point. But then they continued with the Dynamite Diamond Ring showdown between MJF and Adam Cole. MJF comes out, and this was a pay-per-view AEW crowd, so a crowd of their most faithful, and the response was a fraction of what it used to be because they have cut the throat of their biggest future star with the way that he's been presented and been backed into a corner and forced to have been presented. And then Adam Cole comes out, and except for the audience participation where they get to go boom and baby, I've seen people walking up to a bus stop attract more attention. It's just, they didn't want to see this, did they? Did the people want to see this match with any outcome?
The people wanted this feud to end with no ending several months back, almost a year ago when MJF first returned. They didn't want them to keep doing this. Now here it is, the end of the year. It looks like they finally end it. The other problem is people didn't want to see it. The people that did see it seemed to take more to MJF than Adam Cole. And I think a lot of that is specifically because of the visual.
Well, and it's still because that MJF had more goodwill because he was consistently good for so long until they started monkeying with him that it takes a while to lose that luster, although the process has begun. But with Adam Cole, they paired him with guys that they presented as jobbers and idiots, and he looks, not only visually, but looks like in the course of the story to be a complete imbecile because of the way this whole thing's been fucked up. And they just don't care. And then, when MJF threw Adam into the steps to where Adam could get his color, he gets in the ring and tells the crowd to shut the fuck up because the only ones making any noise were the ones cheering for him. And MJF, again, he's trying to make the fans care. And his matches put together always usually make sense, but no, At one point, Adam made a comeback, and there was kind of silence, indifference. And they kept trying, where Adam would hurt his ankle and MJF would clip it so they could extend this dramatic presentation that people didn't want to see the beginning of to begin with. And then Adam Cole pulled MJF into the fucking post and he got juice. And now they got a double juice match going on where nobody gives a shit. And anyway, finally, it just went on and on. MJF rolled out and slapped the stairs behind the referee's back and took a bump and blamed Taven and Bennett so the referee could kick them out of ringside because they were guarding the diamond ring. What sense does it make to have two guys in the match, his two friends guarding the fucking ring that is possessed by MJF? Yes, it's on the line, but you say, anyway. The referee kicked him out. MJF immediately goes and gets the ring and comes in and runs into a super kick. And Adam Cole gets the ring. And he swings, but MJF kicks him in the balls and hits him with the draping pile driver 1, 2, 3. So the babyface looks even worse when he takes the goddamn gimmick away from a fucking heel and the heel still beats him, doesn't he?
I mean, the booking's never good and never makes sense. At least MJF won, but the way everything happened and then the post-match.
But if I was Adam Cole, I'd say, just knock me out with the fucking ring. Jesus Christ. Don't give me a goddamn gun and then I can't fucking shoot straight. If
I was Adam Cole, I'd say, give me a protein shake.
Give me an inflatable skin diver's outfit. And just cover him somehow. But so MJF gets a chair and puts it on Adam's ankle. He's going to break the ankle, go for the stomp, and music plays, and here comes Roderick Strong. And he hits the ring, and MJF bails out and runs to the entranceway. But then Kyle O'Reilly comes out and grabs MJF and throws him back in the ring. And O'Reilly and Roderick Strong beat MJF up and hug Adam Cole and then hold the heel so that Adam Cole can punch him. And then Taven and Bennett come back in and the 5 baby faces celebrate because they all together were able to beat up the one heel.
Who won the match?
Who won the match?
Hopefully that's the end of all that, and hopefully that's the end of all that with the feud. I have to be very honest with you. We'll talk about Dynamite a little bit later. I'm over everything with the Undisputed anything. I don't want to see these guys anymore.
You're disputing it, is what you're saying?
I am. I'm saying there's a dispute, and I don't want to see any more of this kingdom, or this era, or whatever the fuck it is.
Or this time period. Just use our time machine. Oh. Get us out of this. So we don't have to talk about the rest of the pay-per-view?
No, we have to. No, I didn't know what exactly we were getting out of, but we're back into that.
Well, now we're back into this. For the international title, another one, we had our friend Take a Shit defending against Powerhouse Hobbs.
Can I say one thing and then I won't say anything else about this match? This is the most disappointing match to me as a fan on the show. I was hoping for more out of this.
Well, you silly boy. How dare you have hope? How dare you have it? Because AEW will strip the hope away from you. And it will give you cope instead of hope.
Oh, God.
So what has Hobbs done to deserve this? And what is the... He's gone forever because he's hurt. He comes back in a muddled situation where his manager had totally forgotten about him because he was so unimportant. So he becomes a babyface just by showing up on the other side. And wasn't his partner? Wasn't it Ricochet? Am I misremembering that?
What? Who was whose partner?
Remember when Hobbs showed up here a couple months ago again, and Callis had forgotten to re-sign him? Who was his partner in that match that brought him back as a babyface?
I have to double check. It may have been Ricochet.
I think it was Ricochet. So then you don't see him, Hobbs, I'm talking about. And then now he's going to do a job for this, again, for this bogus title. There's no thought to getting him over first before he does any of these things.
He returned in November as Ricochet's surprise partner against the Don Callis family.
Boom. Well, now he came out to get his ass kicked by, is Take a Shit still a member of the Don Callis family?
He is, charter member.
Well, there you go. So at the bell, they stood and traded 13 fake forearms and 3 shoulder tackles before Take a Shit took a bump. So way to get Hobbs over. I know, yes, our friend Take is a wonderful young athlete also. We've said good things about him. But he shouldn't be standing toe-to-toe with Powerhouse Hobbs. This match shouldn't even be happening right now. Especially the same kind of matches everybody else has. They did the fake forearms. Then they rolled it out and fought on the floor while Aubrey Ed stood and stared at him. And then Take got heat on Hobbs's bad knee. And again, they put him in the position. Remember when I was talking about how Braun Breaker was trying to sell a body part the other day? Was it his arm or whatever, or his ankle, whatever it was? But he was trying to sell like Ricky Morton, and it don't work. You can't have a beast say he has to sell the concept of the pounding and the blows or a big concussive effect, and you get a whatever. They got a Hobbs trying to learn to work. I'm sure somebody has pitched him. Oh, you learn to work by selling. Well, not like this. He's trying to sell like Ricky Morton on a bad knee. But look at him. He's a powerhouse. So this could have been put together better, but I don't know who's putting anything together. Take a Shit can't lead, and Hobbs has been booked into an unwinnable situation where he never gets a chance to be dominant over any fucking body. And then Hobbs had to make a one-legged comeback, so a lot of that shit looked like shit. Didn't have him sell his arm. Don't have him sell his leg. At least, the fans were ready for Hobbs to win it. And then Hobbs went to the top to do something, allegedly, but Take a Shit caught him, and they had an awkward struggle to pull off a superplex, and they lost their balance, and both of them fell off and crumbled to the apron, and they went right back to it like idiots, where they'd established, here's what we're going to do. Oh, but shit, we don't have the balance to do it. We fell off. Now we'll climb back up, and my opponent will be extra careful in helping me give him a superplex this time.
What should they have done?
Do anything else, bud. They both fell off on either side of the goddamn ropes, get on the floor, bing, bing, roll back in, shoot, duck, fucking spine buster, whatever the fuck. Who was going to Take a Shit, was going to give him the superplex, then let Take a Shit duck something and hit him with a goddamn flying Japanese dingbat. But don't go back and do the same thing you just fucked up, obviously, and then be more. And so it like Hobbs then just climbed right up. Here, superplex me, friend. Because they didn't want to fuck it up again. And then Take a Shit came off the top with a senton and then ran into a spine buster and got so Take a Shit superplexed him, then came off the top with a senton on him and then hit the ropes and ran toward him, and Hobbs got up and gave him a spine buster and got a 2 count. And then they both climbed up to the top again, not smoothly, and Hobbs power slammed him off the top and sold his knee. So, again, yes, it's a great idea. Hobbs is so strong, I bet I can power slam you off the top rope. It's not executing the move, it's the phoniness of getting there that fucking doesn't come into their mind. And then take a shit, hit him with a kick, an elbow, a knee, a front face lock, and a suplex, and beat him 1, 2, 3. After he was slammed off, as spine bustered and power slammed off the top rope, well, I'll just kick him and elbow him and knee him and front face lock him and suplex him and just beat him 1, 2, 3. I'll just do that. And after all that other shit, he just beats him flat in a horrible finish. Thanks for coming, Hobbs.
And it's almost like Wardlow. I mean, it's not an exact thing, but it's like they do something bad and they think they're going to repair it. You know, we'll talk about Dynamite when we talk about it. They give Powerhouse Hobbs a big handicap win. But this match didn't do it.
And one of the other people apparently was really handicapped.
Stop it. Stop. He was a smaller man. He was a smaller man, that's for sure.
No, he was a wise ass. He was a smart ass. We'll get to him, but I would have fucking, if it had been on OVW television, it's been a wrestling school, I would have gone around the announce desk, hit the ring, and pulled the guy out myself. He was so unprofessional.
My point is, this match didn't do anything to help Hobbs. And I think, like I said, it was disappointing. We finally get Hobbs versus Takeshita, and it just wasn't happening.
And it didn't happen, but it happened. And then the women's title was on the line with Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander. I will say this. At the top of it, I said I feel sorry for Statlander. We like her. We see something there, but oh, hell no. And I was rewarded in my first thought because this from bell to bell was close to 25 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, they typically give her at least 20 minutes for her big matches.
Well, finally, the heel beat the babyface clean in the middle of the ring with a fancy babyface roll-up. And I wrote, God, I hate these people. They wonder why the fans don't care about anybody because the babyfaces all get beat in the just... It was like the old Billy Jack line, not Billy Jack Haynes, but Billy Jack movie. He tells them I'm going to take my right foot and kick you on the left side of your face. And then he does it. It's all the heels say, I'm going to beat you in such and such a way. And then they do. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I don't even know what I was going to say. Where's Camille?
Well, she escaped.
Have we ever gotten an explanation exactly what went down?
No, there has never been any...
I haven't asked anyone. I may have to because I'm.
Well, there's not been any public acknowledgement of how. I want to know from somebody, how did they bring her in there? What idea did they pitch her? How did it suddenly turn into whatever it turned into? And did she finally just say, you know what, let me the fuck out of here? And then because she's gone without any comment whatsoever.
Yeah, they have stopped saying her name. And when they had that recap video 2025 for Mercedes, there was not a clip of her.
So I'm sure there's an NDA involved on one side or another, but maybe she had some kind of leverage. She only signed a short term. She only shined a short-term contract.
I mean, that's always an option if she...
That's a Spoonerism. One of the fans reminded me of.
Why would Tony do that? Why would Tony take someone like that and let her shine a suicide contract if he knows that NXT would want someone like that? I don't think there's any short-term contracts.
Well, remember what? Maybe both sides wanted her. Maybe she said, "Well, I like what you're saying to me, but I need to experience it firsthand." I don't know. But point is, she was in there. She was bungled badly, made to look like a complete idiot on television. But she was allowed to get the fuck out. And they're just acting like she wasn't there.
Here's another one with Statlander out there. Whatever happened to Stokely?
I forgot about him.
Right? He just disappeared. He was just on TV nonstop, and then he was off TV.
Well, he's probably like Don Fallis. He forgot about her. You know, a lot of these managers, they got so many people, they forget about some of them. He just forgot to keep going to the ring with her or whatever.
Well, while that was a short review, I do have to ask you something about it. Mercedes Moné, the outfits.
Yes.
The wigs.
Yes.
The jewelry. All the things happening. Is AEW paying for this? And if so, would she be allowed to resell it? Can she just start her own, Mercedes, not Salvation Army, but something where she could just sell things that were given to her?
Gently used merchandise, gently used ring-worn items. I bet she could sell some items she's worn to some segment of the population, but it all revolves around the dollar sign. Brian, she got the dollar sign on the outfit, got the dollar sign on the wig. She's Mercedes Moon, eh?
A CEO.
And she's all about making the money because she's a CEO of the MOUSE Club. And, you remember back in the dark days, Brian, before we established our modern form of currency, when Shopify, our friends over at Shopify, pulled us all out of the dark, we were using bags of shells and boxes of rocks as currency and coin of the realm until Shopify came around and just revolutionized everything, started making everybody all this money. You remember those old days.
That's not exactly how I would put it. I mean, Shopify.
Well, yeah, let's say you wanted a loaf of bread. You go down to the bread monger. You say, I have a bag of shells for you, sir. And he'd break you off a piece of bread and hand it to you, however much the shells were worth. That's pretty much the way things happened until Shopify has revamped this whole system. And now, if you're on a platform like Shopify, because they're all over the world, they're just covering the world, well, then automatically, if somebody in Bolivia wants to buy your tchotchke and they've only got Bolivian rubles or potentially just a gallon of goat's milk, boom, Shopify will take that and turn it into real money and hand it right to you.
For your tchotchkes.
For your tchotchkes.
That's a word not used enough anymore.
Well, the tchotchke people use it all the time, but they need to get the awareness out. That's why you need Shopify, folks, because they can shell tchotchkes. They can sell tchotchkes.
Right by the seashore.
Right by the seashore and get you a bag of shells and turn it into... Point is, if you've got a product or service that you'd like to get out there and, let's face it, sometimes you can use code words for these services, wink, wink, nod, nod. And, you need to get it out there. You need a platform that will facilitate your selling. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. And, well, in that case, your conversion is automatically worth half again what it was before. They've converted it. And there's way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going with our friends at Shopify. So if you're selling those icicles to Eskimos, you got to upgrade your business right now and get the same checkout that the big boys use, the big major platforms, the industrial giants, the kings of commerce. They're all with Shopify. And you can get your deal for only $1 a month. It's a trial period, at which point they'll put you on trial. They'll cross-examine you. They'll make sure you're being honest with them, and then they'll continue the arrangement.
There will be no trial.
Well, it's a trial period. They can have a trial during that period, can't they?
It is a trial period. You will not be on trial with Shopify, at least during that period.
Well, so they'll guarantee you immunity for $1 a month, folks. You will not be able to be put on trial.
Well, just because of the timing. It would be a remarkable thing to move through the court so quickly that they would be able to get you to trial so fast.
Well, we're guaranteed speedy trials in this system, except if, you appoint the judges. But you can get a $1 a month trial period at Shopify.com/JCE. That's all lowercase, the J, the C, and the E. Shopify.com/JCE to upgrade your selling today. It's a $1 a month trial period where they will show you how that they will make themselves indispensable in your life. You'll become addicted to them, and you won't be able to quit them. You won't be able to get away from them no matter what you do because they're going to be so good to you, and it's going to be such a rush. Shopify.com.
You can stop anytime you want.
/JCE.
Well, let's return.
Oh, do we have to go back, Daddy?
Back to the world's end. Let's go back to the end of the world.
Do we have to go back, Daddy?
Let's go back.
Good.
AEW's
Don't take me back.
World's End in Orlando. We're ready for the next match.
Well, it was the time for the time for the tournament final is what it was time for. The tournament for the Continental Classic. Wait a minute. Let me go back to Uncle Dave's thing. Does he say what exactly this goddamn deal was? The Continental Classic. Yeah, that's what it's the Continental title. It used to be the Classic when there was 3 belts involved, but now it's just the 1 belt because they split the other belts up. So the Continental Classic is only for the Continental title. Not to be confused with the Intercontinental title.
But it just so happens that the Continental Champion, Okada, is in the final. What if he wasn't?
Well, no. Because they said last year that the Continental Champion would only be champion for 1 year, and then the new champion would be the champion. So he's got to come back and prove himself. That's when they took the other 2 belts out of it and gave them to other people, because that would have muddied shit up really bad. Are you clear now?
I mean, as clear as I'm going to get about this.
Okay, it was Ospreay and Okada, otherwise known as more of these 2.
Come on, you know what? This was Okada's best match in AEW, I think.
Okay, again, to be the nicest guy in prison is not an honor that our children should aspire to. It's his best match out of a bunch of shitty matches. But again, regardless of whether they're MDs or not, move doers, here was the setup to this. Ospreay bled a bucket in the previous match and went 20-something minutes. He comes out, his head's all bandaged, he's still bloody, he's selling the previous match. So they start out the match by trading the forearms, and then Ospreay did a dive in the first 45 seconds. And then they fought on the floor for an extended period of time. And Okada gave Ospreay a couple of different DDTs on the floor, on his busted open head from the previous match. Within the first 2 or 3 minutes, I feel like I'm in hell being forced to watch the same thing over and over and over.
Do you think Tony told Ospreay about Ted DiBiase and Ric Flair with Dick Murdoch in 85 at Mid-South, and this is like their version of that? Like DiBiase coming out after getting busted open, and he's got the wrapping around his head, and
but how could they even have a video?
Ric Flair DDTs him on the floor a bunch of times.
Well, yeah, they even had a video guide of how to do it then, if that's what they were trying to do, and they didn't do it. But the Ospreay is supposed to be the one fighting from underneath, but then the injured guy is more like an Olympic gymnast suddenly, and Okada's bumping like he's made out of paper mache because I don't care whether everybody says, oh, he turned it up or not. He's still doing everything he can to protect every part of his body. And they went back out to the floor for a while, and I zoned out. And then they both started going 100 miles an hour, and Ospreay hit another Styles Clash and got a 2 count. So he can go through all this and still hit and Okada hits a clothesline and gets a 2 count. And then Ospreay was selling like death, and Okada was just forearming him lackadaisically. And I gotta be, they were 15 minutes in by this point. I zoned out. I fast forwarded another couple of minutes. And they went back and forth, and Okada clotheslined him 1, 2, 3. So just beat him flat. They put this broken down dumb shit over one of the 2 top baby faces they've got clean. I don't know why they do it at all, but they do everything in the goddamn world to each other. And then when they run out, the heel just beats the babyface with a half-ass move that was less dangerous than 14 other things they did. And then they shook hands with each other, with Ospreay, the babyface, on his knees in front of the Japanese prick that calls everybody bitch that just beat him. And he shook his hand while on his knees and bowed to him. He'd get a little head bow. Is it any wonder why they can't keep viewers or make stars? When this whipped fucking puppy, he came in for millions of dollars as the second coming, even the first coming. And now he's fucking shaking hands with this broken down fucking asshole that they put over everybody and bowing to him. Can you tell me the fucking idea behind this?
Will Ospreay was the guy they had a chance to make their own breakout star or try to, and he's just another one of the guys in AEW losing matches. He's lost a lot of matches if you really think about it. And, it was the best match Okada's had in AEW. But I think the problem is the finish. And I think we first noticed it a few pay-per-views ago. The heels keep winning all the matches. And I know it's like an AEW fan base out there post babyface and heel. Or at least that's what Cody was telling us a few years ago.
Before he went back to where they were babyface and heels and made a fucking fortune.
We don't do anything with those boring tropes like baby faces and heels. We're past that. Well, look at what goes on here. And I think the fans get more and more deflated. They're on max now. And the interesting thing is, and they were hyping it up too, 2019. You can go on there and see the start of AEW. It's like another company. Big buildings, a lot of fans. Not just the amount of people, how loud they are, how active they are. It's another company. They burned out their fan base with the booking. And it's not going to get any better from here.
All right, well, explain this to me. As soon as they're finished with the match, Chris Daniels comes out on the stage and congratulates Okada. And he says, I can't present the belt because I'm no longer an executive vice president. And they said that again on Dynamite. But at the same time, they said, but he's still an official of did he quit? Did someone demote him? What is this, some sub-show story that's carried out on Rampage? Were
we told he was an EVP?
I don't think he was ever an EVP. I think he was Tony's fucking surrogate for a week there to come out and announce matches until he stopped doing that a week later. Well, anyway, he said, I can't present the belt. I'm no longer an EVP, but this man is. And they play music, and out comes the triumphant return of Twinkle Toes McFingerbang. He's back. Good old Kenny. And he took the belt to the ring and handed it to Okada and turned around and left. And it was 30 minutes from the entrances of this thing to the belt handoff.
So now we get the tease of Okada and Omega, which was a big match in New Japan.
How many years ago?
I mean, it's funny. You don't really think about how long ago it is.
Was it before Okada's near-fatal fucking train wreck he apparently was in?
It was before that. It was before Kenny's issues. So you have to wonder what it would be like now. You have to wonder what kind of schedule Kenny's going to be able to work. And again, they bring him back for this, unannounced, comes out, presents the belt that he has nothing to do with, but except he's EVP, I guess. He's wrestling at the Tokyo Dome. His return, that's what he's an EVP again. So using his corporate duties, he's going to go wrestle for someone else.
But he shows up
I think
on
Tony
this
Khan
show
is
to give somebody else a belt, and then he goes to Japan and wrestles in the... You would feel sorry for Tony if he hadn't had so many numerous episodes of proof that he's being taken like a goddamn sucker and drained for his blood by these guys.
Unless he buys New Japan. That's the only way it makes any sense. The amount of promotion all of a sudden he's giving New Japan. But we'll talk about Dynamite when we talk about Dynamite.
Speaking of draining blood, can you imagine Tony Khan, who thinks he understands the wrestling business in Japan, trying to run a Japanese company?
I can absolutely imagine that. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I can imagine Tony Khan thinking, hey, you know what? I can run New Japan. How much is it? I'll buy it.
Well, then we come to, is this the last match? Thank fucking God. The World Title 4-Way match was the big main event of this fiasco, with Pockets versus Light Switch Jay White versus Hangnail Page versus the champion Dick the Boozer, the world's most dangerous plumber. And it writes itself. It started with a dive and a 4-way on the floor. And since all three of these numbnutses are mad at the plumber, they're all ganging up on him at the start, and when they had him out on the floor and up against the railing, they beat on him with some of the fakest looking shit I've ever seen in a wrestling match. It was like they didn't want to piss him off. They were just, at one point, not even trying to do pockets as fake kicks. They was just all fake. And then Claudio came out and pulled Moxley over the rail and took him to the back of the arena, and the other three followed, and they all fought in the stands and in the arena, and Wheeler Useless got involved, and Marina Shafir and security, but it's not as exciting as it sounded. They were all involved, but it was just the same bullshit where they fight out in the crowd kind of, and then they fight back.
The fan reaction is part of the story. They don't react to any of this.
They're standing there smirking at him. They won't even get out of the way when these giant, sweaty men are fighting in their direction. They're like, they're not going to hurt me. And at 4 minutes in, Moxley and Pockets got in the ring, actually, and then they rolled back out. And then all three of them powerbombed Moxley through the announce desk. But then Hangnail double-crossed the other three. And they had a three-way on the floor while Moxley sold the desk, but nobody would get in the ring. And then finally, in about 10 minutes, Dick the Boozer popped back up and beat up the mascot. And somewhere, I guess, on the desk, Moxley had busted the back of his head open. And then Moxley and Page did fake forearms and bad indie spots. And then they went into the part where everybody did everything over and over. And Moxley was actually selling for the emaciated little fucking delinquent. I'm sorry, I should be more specific. The mascot. And then Page pulled out one referee so he couldn't count. They got a second referee in there, but Useless, who's not even in the match, came in and glommed him and beat him up. And then Marina Shafir got in, but White grabbed her without knowing it was her and gave her his finish, which that actually got a pop. And then Useless hit the knee on White, and Moxley gave White his double arm, and Claudio rolled the first referee in, and he did a flat, slow 3 count, and Moxley won again. And people are like, hey. And then the heels went to start beating up Jay White. But then FTR's music played. And they walked out to the ring, and then the lights went out, and Edge's music played. And he came out looking like handsome Jimmy Valiant does today. And then FTR slid in and had a sloppy fight with Claudio and Wheeler and beat them up. And then Edge and the Boozer faced off. And Edge speared him and broke off the chair support and cross-faced him with it in his mouth, because remember, they did that in the WWE when Edge was a star. And then Claudio pulled him out, and Edge started talking into a dead microphone and realized it. So it asked him if they'd give him another. They gave him another. And he told Moxley, "You're all mine, and we're taking it all." What are you taking, and what do you want?
Kept calling him kid, too.
And then Tony Schiavone, when he said, "You're all mine, we're taking it all," Tony said, "I love AEW." Yeah, there you go.
There's a lot to break down there. Tony Schiavone sucks more than anything on commentary, because all he does now is just, wow, what a great roster we have. He said that the other night. I'm like, will you shut the fuck up? And then here, of course, he loves AEW because the Cope returned with, not even the Cope, just Cope. Adam Copeland, the Edge, returned with FTR, who are deader right now than they've been since they first came in. With that bad music, driving a truck. No one wants to see the Moxley stuff to begin with. This isn't promising. And then it was just classic AEW. He gets the mic, he's all fired up. and it doesn't work, and you see his face, and you feel bad for him. He's like, motherfucker, I'm ready.
It wasn't even feeding the broadcast, but not the PA. It was just dead.
It was feeding nothing. It was coming out of nowhere. They gave him a dead microphone. The babyface hits the ring, and they give him a dead microphone.
Remember we talked the other day about, great entrances where as soon as he hit the ring, somebody fucked and shit the bed. Yeah, this wasn't as bad as that.
But him on the mic here talking to Moxley, I don't think that was working. Based on everything Moxley's been doing, the attempted murders and everything. Hey, kid, I'm better than you are, kid.
But here's the problem is, yes, they made the point that I think Edge said something to the effect of, I started doing this when you were still growing pubes or whatever. But look at how old Moxley looks. How old must Edge be? And look at how old Edge is looking now. So I don't know if kid is the thing I'd be calling the fucking 40-year-old guy that looks 50.
Well, that was AEW Worlds End, an exciting end. How many matches did the heels win? The main event, Moxley. Okada. Monet, that's 3 in a row.
Well, now wait a minute.
MJF. Hold on. Is it every match? Mariah May?
No, Osprey
won. Osprey won the opener. That's right.
Yeah.
The match that actually had the fans.
And Okada beat Ricochet, but you can't really tell who the heel
Ricochet, I don't think Ricochet was all the way heel as the match started. I think after the match, it was firmly established he is now the heel.
When the fans threw shit on him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the heels won every match except for the opener, which coincidentally enough was the only match the fans were into from bell to bell.
Well, it's your show, kid.
Well, that was World's End, Grandpa.
See, I can call you kid because I'm older than everybody.
Kid. I mean, I don't know. Of all the things to call Moxley there, it just doesn't. Let me tell you something, asshole. Like anything else. Well, we have more AEW with Dynamite, but before we go there, let's break it up a little bit. Because Raw, which we're not going to review all of, no, please no.
No, because we're going to do that next week when they debut on the, what is it? What are they on now? Netflix?
The Netflix.
The Netflix.
Well, there was one thing on Raw this week, though, that was worth you reviewing, and I know you watched it, and let's talk about CM Punk and Seth Rollins.
Well, I was trying to detox from most wrestling, but when I heard about this segment, I didn't turn my DVR off. It was still there. So I had to go back and look. It was the main event, the last segment of Raw, and Seth Rollins, we've liked his promos when he's more serious, and when he does the acid trip thing, we haven't liked him so much, but he still managed to do his gimmick but be serious. And he and Punk went at each other verbally back and forth with the most venomous barbs. They aired out why they don't like each other, and it all made sense with their history, and they both believe that they have a point. And the people were eating it up, and they were oohing and ahhing on every word. It was as good a face-to-face interaction between two opponents building a match as you will see in today's modern environment. And it was done to build up and promote next week. We're going to get the biggest fight. They're calling it the biggest fight in the WWE is going to be Seth Rollins and CM Punk on the debut of Netflix. And they did, what was it? Was it 10 minutes? Maybe it's 15. It flew by because you didn't want it to be over. But they did the best job you could possibly do in today's environment of talking up a fucking match between two guys and making people just halfway believe something might go on. I applauded them for it.
Beyond the outfit, this was the best of Rollins on the mic. Someone who I've criticized a lot on the mic. This was the best of what he could do when he actually believes some of what he's saying.
Yeah. And again, that's the thing, is they had Punk, who was half the equation, and we all know how that turned out. And God damn it, it's almost embarrassing at this point that the WWE has Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns that were the Plumbers partners, and they're two of the biggest stars and the biggest company in the world. And here's this fucking bald, obscure motherfucker on the other side trying to do his own indie movie to dwindling response from a dwindling audience.
That's right.
But
ripping on me during the Raw review. Who saw that coming?
But I mean, again, this is the guy that when they were all three together, Uncle Dave said, "Oh, well, the star is going to be this Dean Ambrose character. He's great."
We have great talks.
But yeah, Seth Rollins, CM Punk. I've already had Stacy download or install or upload or whatever you do to the Netflix so I can see it on the TV in the house that I know how to operate. And I'm going to be waiting for the biggest fight in the WWE.
Well, any thoughts on the actual context of the segment, the things they were saying, the insults levied?
Well, yes. Well, I didn't make notes because I was still on my vacation, so I don't want to not do justice to some of their accusations. But it was the flavor of the whole thing. They're both serious. They both sound like they mean it. They both have their points, and they get the oohs and ahs in the right places. And that's the thing is, especially at that stage with that, level of importance on the line, to have something that good between two guys that goes that long and really builds up their fucking issue without resorting to and then somebody's going to jump somebody and put them through a table. They just talked to each other and swore they were going to rip each other limb from limb. That's what we need to see. But there's so few guys that can carry it off.
Should there have been people in between them?
Well, I always now just accept that there's not going to be a show host, an announcer holding the microphone, not even refereeing, but just being the facilitator in between to still make it look like a professional sports program. We've lost that. It's probably not coming back. So yeah, there should. I'm not saying that you should have had 18, guys, indie guys dressed as security guards. People have smartened up to that. Those fucking haircuts that half of them have. Just have the announcer and have the announcer have enough respect from the people like a Gordon Solie or a Lance Russell or a Jim Ross or whatever, that they're not going to just bully the guy. AEW, Tony Schiavone's the worst, but all of them do it. There'll be an announcer for the program there talking to people, and as soon as somebody comes up and interrupts, they just fucking bail. They do wordlessly, here, take the microphone, you guys take over. The fuck, do they do that in the National Basketball Association? Or on Wide World of Sports? That's so I've accepted that, but yes, it would help, I think, these segments if there was somebody there at least at the start that stayed with it and hung with it until maybe they got heated and snatched his microphone away or whatever the fuck. But somehow maintaining control of the program, but we've lost that in modern wrestling.
What'd you think of I think it was two different times, the comments about Vince?
Oh, yeah.
When Rollins said you took your ball and you went home, and Punk rightfully so brought up, that's a Vince line, which is bullshit. And second time, when he said, I didn't have a problem with the place, the guy who ran it.
Well, that was the thing is when he said, I didn't have a problem with the place, I had a problem with the guy that ran it, that he got the ooh, but then he doubled down on it and said, but he just loved you, didn't he? Whoa.
Oh, that was good.
And, I'm telling it's a friendly shoot. You're not calling out, how bad the guy looks physically or how old he is or how he's had 14 hair transplants. You're getting edgy cutting lines in on a guy that are sometimes so uncomfortable that the fans may think, well, there's no way he agreed to let him say that. He had to just come out with that. About shit that doesn't detract from anybody. As a wrestler or a competitor or a fucking guy you don't like, you're not trying to be, funny, like stand-up funny where everybody has to laugh. You're like trying to fucking humiliate him with a funny line or stick him with a pointed comment without, bringing up, well, and also, everybody knows that you haven't got your dick hard since 2017. That's, that's why I don't understand why they tear all the guys down on AEW instead of, because they don't have any producers, instead of having people building each other up but making each other uncomfortable verbally in the WWE, which is what is a lot of these promos is what led to the success that they're having now.
Well, that'll be on Raw on Netflix, the big debut, 3 hours, and of course...
As well, no, have you heard this too? God damn it, now we're in worse shape than when we started. Because Raw was 3 hours and SmackDown was 2 hours, but now Raw went to 2 hours and everything was manageable. And now Raw is going to 3 hours, and so is SmackDown. So now we've lost another hour of our fucking lives every week.
Why don't we do like a weekly poll, like the fast forward hour? There's 1 hour on one of these shows that enough people agree that we could fast forward that we don't feel like we pissed off too many people.
Well, but the cunning bastards, they sprinkle it through to where, you know, there's at least one star in every hour.
All right,
but we'll figure that out.
Well,
but
3 hours of Raw and 3 hours of SmackDown. You know what that really means? It means 1 more hour I'll be falling asleep early. And of course, if you're going to fall asleep early or late or at the normal time...
What are you...
You may need a fine mattress, one of the best mattresses you'll ever have, if not the very best. I love them. You'll love them. Jim will tell you about them. I will bow out.
Well, thank you very much, Tony Schiavone, for just handing me the microphone and walking off to...
I love working here. This place is great.
Stand in the corner. You need a mattress because you need to get a good night's sleep and figure out exactly what you're talking about as to whether or not that we're going to have more time or less time when the shows go to 3 hours. But I've got an idea. Maybe we can sleep through the 3 hours like we used to sleep through the 2 hours. And that way, it doesn't matter at all. But it does matter that you get a good night's sleep, folks, on the Helix mattresses that we have been talking about and praising the attributes of for so long now. They are our friends, and they help us fall asleep at night. As a matter of fact, you can get a mattress for any body type, any sleep preference, any size, any shape. Let's say you can't go to sleep until somebody comes over and rubs your tushy. Helix has a tushy mattress that comes with a tushy rubber.
When was the last time I heard the word tushy?
Every time you lay down on this tushy mattress, then someone will come and ring your doorbell and come in and rub your tushy until you fall asleep. That's the service.
That's not the service that we provided here.
It's completely a coincidence that as soon as I got this mattress, the guy started coming and ringing the doorbell every night?
Yeah, listen, that has nothing to... Ladies and gentlemen, no one will be ringing your doorbell offering to rub your tushy. No one from Helix Sleep, that is. And of course...
It depends on what neighborhood you live in. You can't make a blanket statement.
Helix Sleep delivers their blankets and pillows and beds to any neighborhood, Jim. And of course, we can let everyone know about that in a very easy way to communicate the information. Tell them, Jim.
Well, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to say, let's say you got sleep apnea.
You're doing well.
Or back pain, or have problems sweating when you sleep. Well, they've got mattresses where people will come and rub your back or help you breathe. They'll put straws up your nostrils. And help you breathe.
No.
Or they'll dry you off if you're in a bucket of sweat. They'll take the towel to you.
No, they're not going to take a towel to you. There will be no There will be no straws. You'll have nostrils.
They'll take something to you, all right.
No one's coming to rub anything. They're coming to deliver your Helix Sleep mattress, which you will take into your house.
Hey, don't open
up on your own.
Don't tell these people nobody's coming to rub anything. I'm trying to sell these mattresses.
You're trying to sell a rub. Maybe you need to go into a different business.
I don't want to rub the company the wrong way. Folks, if you go right now to helixsleep.com/JCE, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little quiz on what you like in the way of sleeping, what you like to say, hard, firm mattresses or soft, plush mattresses or the big ones or the small ones or the heating ones or the cooling ones or all that type of thing, and they will pick you out the perfect mattress, and you purchase that thing. They will bring it to your home. You can place it where you want. You can unbox it, and poof, it appears. And right now, their New Year sale has been extended until January the 12th. You can get 25% off site-wide anything at helixsleep.com, Helix. 20% off site-wide, and 2 of the free Dream Pillows with every mattress purchase. So how can you afford to not do the thing that you have to do to get a good night's sleep? And that start with a comfortable surface upon which to lay down your weary head and drift off to dreamland. You don't even have to count sheep. And they actually have a special sheep-scented mattress.
No, once again,
for those of you who like to, just you'll get the idea that you're in the barnyard.
There are there are no barnyard scented mattresses from Helix. The mattresses will be scented with natural scents that you will like and will find pleasing, we hope, as you go to sleep with Helix Sleep. Let's go to sleep, Jim. What's the help?
You think it's just because the truck went by the farm down on the corner before they got here that I got the barnyard scent? It helps me count sheep. I can look at their footprints at the same time. Folks, again, Helix Sleep.
HelixSleep.com.
Yes, /JCE. I've got to, I'm a COVID survivor.
That's right. Well, I don't know why you threw that in at the end there, but HelixSleep.com /JCE. Ladies and gentlemen,
wheeze there.
If you weren't going to support this, Jim is a COVID survivor supplier. I was going to say supplier. Listen, he's a COVID supplier. We need your help. Support Helix Sleep. They are great. Seriously, folks, we have them here in the house. I love them. The kids love them.
They come over regularly. They'll eat you out of house and home, these people.
They will stay out of your home. The mattresses are great. HelixSleep.com /JCE. What's that promo code, Jim?
I'm just wheezing. It's JCE.
All right. Well, let's get back to, hold on.
I got that up. That was a shell I coughed up just now. It's back when we used to use shells for currency.
Well, let's get back to the coin of the realm now. And that, of course, is distribution, whether it's TV, whether it's streaming, or in this case, for both companies, a new beginning. AEW, the first Dynamite of the year, the first show to be simulcast on Max, the streaming service. I ended up doing both on 2 different monitors in the office to weigh the experience. But let's talk about AEW Dynamite.
Well, how much did the experience weigh?
On Max, you get everything you get on TBS minus picture-in-picture. You get full screen ads.
So you get less on the Max than you do on the regular television.
Technically, if you consider picture-in-picture to be part of the match you want to see, and it's hard to watch any kind of wrestling like that.
Well, yes.
But you don't get that at all. That content, because some people thought it would be, I guess, Fight or something used to stream Dynamite, and during the commercial breaks, you got whatever they were actually filming during the commercial breaks.
Which was the match.
If there was a match.
But that ain't going to happen here.
That's right.
So fuck you then, is what they're saying.
I don't know who's saying it exactly, but...
Well, they say it. A lot of people are saying it. But it was a brand new year, Brian, January 1st, 20 of 25. That's the year. They were at the old Asheville Civic Center, which now apparently has been rebranded the Harrah's Center of some description. And Tony has gone on a music spree again. He's gotten cutting edge theme music for Dynamite. It's the new stuff. It's the happening stuff. With the kids these days, it's the electronic dance music, right? That is all the rage. I'm so excited by who the Pointed Sisters.
The Pointer Sisters. Oh, come on, they're great. Don't put them down.
A brand new group. People were upset when they would tell me that I'm behind the times in Smoky Mountain Wrestling when I would use music that was 8 years old. This music is 36 years old.
Well, beyond that, and I like the Pointer Sisters. Very talented women.
It don't fit wrestling.
It did not fit the clips they were even showing with it right there at the Open. The first thing they show is Moxley.
And he doesn't make anybody excited.
Yeah, when you see Moxley, do you think of the Pointer Sisters?
I don't think of excitement. I bet neither does Renee.
What was another song they had? I want a booker with a slow hand.
I want a producer with an easy touch. Someone who will teach these. I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Maybe your lyrics are better. Someone who will run off the audience. See, I don't know where exactly I was going to go.
I was going for someone who will tell these dumb fucks how to work a match. But anyway, I guess we shouldn't sing at all because it's time to talk about this program. They started out with Okada calling him the greatest tournament wrestler of all time. Then Dick the Boozer was in the hallway with his stooges. Okay, you had asked me before we went on the air, did you listen to the Moxley promo? And I said, I tried to. They're in a concrete hallway. They're using boom mics and they're echoing and it sounds like they're in an oil drum and he's slobbering and he's drooling and the shit that he says is incomprehensible anyway. And they had 2 cameras in his hallway and he was trying to decide which camera to talk to. So he started talking to both of them. The deal with 2 cameras there is you're supposed to talk to one and the other one is supposed to be able to something that they can cut to. Seeing you talk to the first camera, just to have some variety in the shot, you're not supposed to talk to both those fucking cameras. You've seen the effect I'm talking about on various television programs. They're talking to one, the other one's looking from the side.
I've seen it on their program. That's the way they've done it in the past, even with some of the Moxley promos outdoors.
Well, he's talking to all of them. But what was he saying? Because again, between the oil drum audio and the drooling and the slobbering, and the story that he's trying to tell anyway, which I ain't figured out. What the fuck did he say?
Yeah, the Death Riders, or as I call them, Moxley and the Charisma Vacuums. Oh my God, they just stand there and suck out the energy. I had a reaction, I put it on Twitter even. He's starting to sound like my impression. Like more than ever before. He's talking so much gibberish and shit, and the way he's saying it and delivering it, he's starting to sound like a mockery of himself. And at one point, he's building up his whole little crew and marching back and forth. And this is the line that got me. He goes to Marina Shafir. She stands there stone-faced and doesn't react to a fucking thing. And he goes, she is an impeachable character. And he meant unimpeachable, and he said impeachable. He's all serious and deadly, and he said that, and I lost it.
We can rip holes in her any day of the week. She's impeachable. Well, he was talking about it. So as I took a bullet, and I gotta take a bullet. He's in Rambo: First Blood, and he's out in the fucking woods, and they're shooting at him.
Watch out, Brian Dennehy.
Bless his little pea-picking heart.
He was a big man.
He just passed not long ago. We should have respect.
Oh, you're right. He was a good actor. Didn't get enough roles. I mean, the roles he had were good.
That's right. He was always late to catering. The roles were always gone. He got stuck with the leftovers of the salad. But then after...
Just wait until I see FX2.
If Moxley ever starts watching FXX, we'll be really in trouble. Then they went from that to FTR and Edge doing a promo. We just talked about cheesy shirt designs of the 80s. The rated FTR shirts, oh boy. Does that look like, is that going to be the next Austin 316 or a Smoking Skull shirt? Brian, that colorful little rated FTR logo?
I don't know. I got a bad feeling about this. I mean, we'll see we'll see where it goes after they leave their hometown next week. But I mean, FTR have done this before. Remember right before Punk left? All of a sudden it was CM FTR or whatever it was.
Well, FTR was over at that point, and so was Punk. And they had good matches. But this, wearing the cheesy shirts and interacting with the people they're having to interact with now, I don't hold out a lot of hope.
Well, we'll talk about the one later on with Big Bill, because I think that was a good exposure of the problem. But I don't know how this is going to work.
Well, then, so we went from the Pointer Sisters to the Dick the Boozer in the hallway, Edge and FTR doing the promo, and then the first entrance for the first match starts, and it's Pockets. This is a supposedly important show in the first day of the new year, and we get backstage promo, company mascot. And his graphic was He is AEW's win leader for 2 straight years. Not only is that a problem because it's true, but it's a problem because they released the information. Can you imagine the WWE on Monday Night Raw as here comes Tozawa to the ring? Tozawa is WWE's win leader 2 years in a row. This is what's wrong.
By the way, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean he also wrestled the most amount of matches?
No, that means he's won more matches than anybody else in the fucking company for the past 2 years in a row.
There are people with higher winning percentages, but he's won the most matches.
Yes. And that means that a lot of people lost fucking matches to this fucking joke.
Should they have loaded up this show a little more with stars actually being there for Max, or should they just treated this the way they treated this show?
Oh my God. Not even just load up with it, stars if you can find them, but also with something good to look at if they thought they were going to be exposed to a new audience. This started out bad and got worse. And that's what I'm saying. You lead with the fucking nondescript company mascot, a joke comedy wrestler wrestling Adam Page, and you give them 12 minutes before Page, a legitimate wrestler in their universe, wins with his finish. And then he gets some more heat and gives him 2 dead eyes. And Daniels and the referees come out and Page beats up Daniels. So yeah, they're trying to get heat on Adam Page, but give him a real opponent, for fuck's sake, if that's the first thing that people are going to see when they tune into your program on a new platform. Don't make them immediately think, oh, well, this is some kind of kids wrestling or low budget bullshit or whatever, which is what normal people think when they see Orange Cassidy.
They went too long. I was starting to get dead eye myself watching this match. But yeah, no star power here. And they begin with Adam Page getting a long win. As a positive, beyond the Pointer Sisters, and again, I like the Pointer Sisters, it's not the right usage of it. I like the look of this show. If this is a little glimpse of the look going forward in smaller buildings, or with a smaller setup, no ramp, I thought that looked good. Now, they need the crowd to have energy, but the way I thought in a smaller building with a smaller crowd, it actually looked really good.
On camera, when you're in a building where your stage is bigger than the amount of the crowd you can shoot on the other side, that looks like you're in an airplane hangar. So now they've still got the same amount of people, but smaller stage, smaller building. They can shoot the same amount of people, but it looks like more, if that makes sense to you. It's trick photography. As the Monroe brothers would say, it's a tropical illusion. But anyway, the second match, I actually did some business, and imagine that, because it's the Hurt Syndicate. Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley with MVP against the Acclaimed, and they're doing the deal that Caster is a heel, and he's a prick, and he and Bowens have been arguing with each other. But again, every time that there's a segment with Shelton Benjamin or Bobby Lashley or MVP, more often than not, there's that time that Swerve ran out in the parking lot, just pushed them all over. But more often than not, they get over. It makes sense. It works for them. They establish themselves as stars. And before I talk about this, I will say another thing that I watched on the Christmas break. I had to because I heard about it, and I said, oh, man. But it was actually good. Shelton had a match with old Danny Garcia on Collision as part of this bogus tournament. And, of course, they put Garcia over, which is a booking crime that should be punishable by firing squad. When you got Shelton getting over like a fucking star, and to have this bland indie fucking mooch beat him. But since they had to in this screwy fakakta tournament, as Howard Finkel would have said.
Very good.
Shelton had a match with him that he obviously called and produced and controlled, where he threw him around and manhandled him through the whole fucking match, gave Garcia hope spots and moments of shine, and then shut him down, and then lost on a complete fluke with a roll-up. And the babyface rolled out on the floor, and Shelton was like, what the fuck happened? That shouldn't have happened. He did the best that he could with that situation, and still did. If that was an isolated thing, where it was the only time Shelton had been beat, I would say, well, that was brilliant. Even though you picked the wrong guy to do it, that's the way you beat a guy that's still getting over as a star and doing a good job of it. But then he does jobs for other people too, and there's only so far you can take that before a guy that's even doing a tremendous job of getting over on his own is hamstrung by these fucking indie goofs that he's having to put over. But I wanted to mention that if anybody wants to see an example of how a top guy should work with a mid-card guy and has to slip on a banana peel and put the mid-card guy over, but still come out looking like a star, that match is as close as you'll find to one today.
Sadly, it cost him 3 points.
Yes, unfortunately. That 3 points could have made all the difference. He might have made it to the clubhouse. But anyway, and they mentioned that the Acclaimed have had, they're talking about how they've been such a long-running team. They've had 81 matches as a team. That's fucking 2.5 months worth of fucking tag team wrestling at any other point in history.
Did you see the promo they did before the match?
Yes, they were arguing with each other, and Caster's being a prick, and he's the best wrestler in the world, and Bowens is fed up with him.
He had one of my favorite, I don't even know if it's a line or just the way he did it, because I always want someone to do something like this. He goes, I'm the best wrestler in the world, and Bowens stops him and starts giving him a hard time. And Caster says, now? When we're doing our interview? Like, you had all week. Now? You know what? Seriously, that more people should say that. Caster's in maybe the best shape he's been in. I have no idea what the hell they're doing with him.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is they're not only turning him, but they're making him out to be an asshole that you don't like and a heel that you wouldn't give a shit about. An idiot.
Yeah.
And so basically, Bobby beat up Caster for a while and the fans were chanting, Bobby, Bobby. And then Bowens got in with Shelton. And again, you remember when I was talking before about somebody went back and did the same thing that they had just fucked up and told the people blatantly that they had fucked it up by going back and doing the same thing? The Acclaimed were trying to do a blind tag, but Shelton was backing up Bowens, but Caster was on the wrong side of the ring post, and he tried to step up on the ropes and reach over and tag Bowens' shoulder, which none of that would have been illegal anyway. Your feet have to be on the apron, and you got to tag hand to hand. But he couldn't fucking reach him. And Shelton had to just shoot him off, and then Bowens, they were trying to shoot him off, but Bowens realized that he hadn't been tagged, and he stopped, and it was awkward, and they went back into it. And as they were going back into it, Caster goes around to the proper side of the ring post and shows her, oh, he was on the wrong side. And they did the exact same thing, where now Caster slaps Bowens on the shoulder, and Bowens is mad that Caster tagged himself in. But they can't even goddamn call something else in the ring when they fucked one thing up to get to the same place. And if they don't know how to do a blind tag, somebody, a producer, for instance, could have illustrated, hey, numbnuts, if the guy's got you in a headlock, then you need to be on this side of the post or that side of the post, and you need to reach out this way. Or if the guy's going to shoot you off, you got to be on the other side. But they're just... So then Shelton did 4 German suplexes on Caster while Bowens walked out because he was mad at him. And then Lashley destroyed Caster and hurt locked him, and they beat him. So that was fine. The Hurt Syndicate was not damaged in this, but Caster must have really pissed these people off because they're actively trying to make people say, fuck this fucking guy.
It's a weird, I guess slow build isn't the right word. It's a weird, slow train wreck, I guess, maybe. Watching the Acclaim break up, right? I mean, it's been going on for a little while. Started calling himself the best wrestler alive or whatever months ago. But this is being done in such a weird way. You know, with someone like Caster, who keeps getting in trouble for shit he says, and people know that, fucking run with that. Not to say he's Brian Pillman or anything, but if people know the guy keeps getting in trouble and you plan to continue to employ him, why not do something with that instead of making him... They turned him into a jerk-off character because he's a fool now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're not trying to make a heel that will draw money or sell tickets. They have said, we hate this fucking guy and we want to make him go out on television and either act as stupid as possible or we want to treat him as badly as possible. Or they just don't know how to book anything. One or the other.
The fans really reacted to the Hurt Syndicate. Again, they continue to, like their stars. There was a spot, a little thing I liked, where Shelton and Bowens bumped into each other, but Shelton didn't move. Shelton didn't flinch, even though Bowens is kind of the... I guess you would say he's the power guy of the tag team, even though Caster's a bigger guy, but Bowens kind of wrestles like that. Shelton didn't move, and Shelton shouldn't. Shelton's been treated, other than like a loss to a Daniel Garcia or a very, very long match with a commander or shit like that. Shelton's been used better here. And because of that, he's come across, I think, as a bigger star so far.
Well, yeah, and it's not the way he's being used, it's the way he's performing. Right now, Shelton Benjamin is the best wrestler at AEW. I can make that blanket statement because think about it. Who else has come in and 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, has been even more over, has more interest, has gotten over by his matches as a top guy that you would believe in than Shelton Benjamin has? Everybody else comes in and within weeks, people can't stand them. Or they're the shits. Or nobody cares.
Well, maybe a Hechachero.
Oh, come on.
No, but seriously, from the moment they walk out, I'm not crazy about the music, to be honest with you.
No.
From the moment they walk out.
It's not the Pointer Sisters.
When they walk out, MVP with Lashley and Shelton right there, I mean, they look like stars. They look like they should be kicking everyone's ass, and so far they have.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying Shelton Benjamin is the best wrestler in AEW right now because he is the only one that has come in, and I don't know how long, and done what you're supposed to do, which is go out and have matches that get yourself over as a legitimate threat to anybody. He's not been helped by the booking. He hasn't been tremendously hurt by it. And most of the people didn't see him get beat by some of these, jobbers. But he's the only one. So he's the best wrestler in AEW right now. He's the only one doing what he's supposed to do. Sorry. But now he's got competition, Brian, as best wrestler at AEW because the next match was Jamie Hayter versus Julia Hart.
Oh, man.
Oh, come on. Did I miss anything involved in this? Well, tell me what I missed until I got to the finish, which I got to as quickly as possible.
Jamie Hayter is like, I don't know. She used to be out there looking like a badass. I think she had a little more weight at that time, but also just the look, what she was wearing, her hair. Like plaid and glitter. I don't know. Like she looks like a hostess at the fucking Pancake Cottage with a wedgie. And I like Jamie Hayter, but her look since she's returned is just, I think, she loses some of her charisma, I guess is the way I want to say it. But the match was all right, I guess. It went a while. Went through a commercial break.
Yeah.
And Julia Hart sprayed the mist.
Well, wait a minute. No, you're jumping ahead because first she got an arrow.
Yes. She's known for her archery. She's trying to win her way to your heart.
Yes. Archer Hart. She gets an arrow and brings it into the ring, and referee Aubrey Edge, she's on the spot as usual. She was right there, and she gets the arrow and is going to hand the arrow out. And as she turns her back, Julia Hart spits. It was called mist. It was allegedly mist.
I didn't see anything.
Well, she spit it in Jamie Hayter's face, but Either there was something and I think, did she maybe spit the whole fucking rubber out? Because
Well,
there was
explain yourself, please, before you get in trouble.
no, well, she had to, because there was no mist on her mouth, there was no mist on Jamie Hayter's face, there was no mist on the mat or anybody's hands. I think she tried to bite the fucking rubber and spit the mist and spit the whole fucking rubber out.
For people who don't know, that's the way to do it. You load up a condom.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't know that?
Has anyone ever just spit out the condom before?
Yes. Yes. It can happen. And also, you know, if you take the Alka-Seltzer, so you foam at the mouth, sometimes you spit the fucking Alka-Seltzer out. But because there was no mist in her mouth, at all, on her chin, nothing on anybody's hands, nothing. And Jamie Hayter kept her face covered up with her hands as she was rolling around and selling, so nobody could see it. But there was no mist. But the announcer, oh, the mist, and it burns. So maybe instead of it just either that, or they're just ribbing Julia Hart, telling her, keep putting these rubbers in your mouth for practice.
Well, Julia Hart got the win, and then, of course,
I wonder what they've knotted up in those things.
She lip-synced her song afterwards, of course, and that was her big return. Welcome back, 2025, Julia Hart.
Well, and then we got packages on Felcher and Osprey and Okada and Kenny, because those are the rivalries we have to look forward to, I guess, while WWE has Punk and Rollins. Okay, why did Mercedes Moon need the special table set up in the ring with her display of belts that she's gotten from various sources that nobody cares about, and the champagne bottle and the fucking champagne glass? And she came out to cut a promo basically saying she's wrestling old Mina Mellons in the Tokyo Dome Saturday for another promotion, New Japan, and she wants the Rev Pro Championship, whatever that may be, to add to her women's title in AEW and her New Japan Strong Women Championship. And it's going to be title versus title with old Mina Mellons. And then she drank champagne and did the stripper dance and left.
Well, they also had a video. They had a video of her in 2024, some of her big matches, and there was not a sign of Camille anywhere.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, that's old news under the bridge and around the corner of the bend and down the stream. That Camille's gone. She escaped. Who knows what kind of paperwork was signed for her not to reveal how she managed to get out of there so quick. You know, and that's another thing. How many guys and or girls are sitting there under the contract? I know a bunch of them are just saying, hey, this guy will pay me no matter what happens as long as I just sit here. But some of them want to get out of there. Some of them want to escape.
There's a lot. More than people realize, yeah.
Then I wonder how much dissension that has spread when Camille was able to fucking get the fuck out of there.
Well, again, let's find out what happened. We still don't know where Odyssey Jones went. But back to this Mercedes Moné.
Well, no, we know why Odyssey Jones went.
We think we do. That's never been confirmed, has it?
Well, at least it was suspected. Nobody has said Camille was on the lam from the FBI or fucking engaged in international terrorism or some unsavory activity. We know that she was brought in, booked to the moon for 2 weeks, flummoxed and fumbled, made to look like an idiot. And just when we were saying, my God, can't she get out of there before it ruins her career? She's gone, and they don't even mention her name anymore.
This promo, though, after they show the video, she's standing there and she does this promo on Mina Shirakawa and the Tokyo Dome match. They put up a graphic in the lower left-hand corner for the Tokyo Dome match. I'm like, oh, I don't even think about it being this weekend. I don't even think about New Japan anymore. Maybe I'll get it. But it didn't say available on pay-per-view. It didn't say stream here. Nothing. They were basically advertising a match that if you were in the general vicinity of Tokyo.
Are you ribbing me?
No. Did you see anything that said available on pay-per-view?
Well, no, but I wasn't looking because I don't intend to fucking look at it. If it's available on every fucking channel, I'll turn the TV off. But
as I'm looking at the graphic and I'm thinking, man, this match isn't available anywhere. Then she goes, and I want you to put up the Rev Pro title, to no reaction because no one's ever heard of this belt. It's never been mentioned before. So again, they're plugging another company's show,
But they're actually selling a show in another country that you can't even watch?
Hold on, let's see. Wrestle Kingdom. They didn't say you could watch it, so Wrestle Kingdom.
What the fuck? Just so they can masturbate to the idea that they're getting to work in Japan?
You could watch it apparently on Triller.
Oh, boy.
Or on, well, this can't be right, New Japan World. See, it says RTN Horse Racing and
what?
The Disc Golf Network. I don't know if these are just other networks. But they didn't say any of that. They basically just put up a graphic for a match that they're not going to have on AEW TV. For a title that's not an AEW title. It's not even a New Japan title. That's the lack of focus there. Even if Tony wants to let these people do all these things, how does it help them for any viewer who's tuning in to ever follow along and care enough if it's just referencing all sorts of shit you can't keep up with? Because it's not even on the show. So, yeah. They advertise the match that's not available.
Well, yeah, I wish more of them were like that. But then we got to 9 o'clock and we got to see the equivalent of an Eddie Graham charitable presentation on Florida Championship Wrestling. Dax and Cash. I think Dax was the one that I noted was there, presenting a $25,000 check for Asheville's hurricane recovery and relief. That was very nice. And they live there and they've been spearheading that.
Did you see when they showed the first responders in the building?
No, I didn't see that because I've zipped through the commercial breaks until I see what I believe to be a wrestler, and then I stop. And so some of that went by. I was watching a commercial. Me and Stace both were thinking, is this part of the wrestling? And then it was a commercial. So I didn't see that part.
You sure it was a commercial or a teaser for Bandito coming back again? But
no, I have a feeling it'll be a while before he comes back again.
I'm not sure, but so they show all this stuff, and it's nice. It's wonderful that AEW is being supportive of the community there, and that things are getting done. I just saw a video that, like, the Amish showed up and in like a couple of days built like
what made them furniture? What did they
built 80 little houses in like 2 days or something like that. Yeah, they just came and built, small little housing.
Say what you want to about them fucking Amish, but they're dedicated.
Oh man, if you can get Amish book cabinets, those are the best ones.
They're just not allowed to read any of the books that rest on the bookshelves. But the presentation, the first responders.
Oh, so then they go back to the building and they say, here we have some of Asheville's first responders, whatever the fuck he says. I guess it was supposed to be like someone from whatever. There were 4 guys standing there in darkness. So the camera's filming them. You can't see any of their faces. It's just 4 silhouettes standing there for like a minute. And they're like, here are the first responders. And you can't see who any of them are.
They're able to respond so quickly because they're mere shadows. They just fly around.
Yes.
They can appear out of nowhere. Well, you'll be happy to know that Officer Bar Brady got together with Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, and they're back together. That trio of miscreants. And they got a 3-way match coming up here that was next after this interview, where Roderick Strong was going to wrestle Jay White, was going to wrestle Swerve Strickland, and the winner of the 3-way gets into next week's Casino Gauntlet match to determine the winner of that will get a world title match the following week on TV. I believe I covered that correctly, didn't I?
Yes, the Casino Gauntlet is back.
Just what we needed. And I swear to God, again, it's a 3-way match. Make of it what you will, with confusing stipulations of the guy goes into the Casino Gauntlet. And last time Roddy was in a Casino Gauntlet match, Brian, he didn't even get in it because it ended before he got in it, which is another thing that's wrong with their fucking match. But finally, Swerve is on the floor, And from the crowd, Ricochet runs up to the rail behind him wearing a suit and stabs him in the head with golden scissors. Wasn't that a Beatles song? Golden scissors in your head.
It was golden slumbers, and it wasn't in your head.
Well, I was slumbering by this point because it was so boring, but he stabbed him in the head with the golden scissors and then was standing there at the rail, literally 1 foot away from the people in the front row, and the fans were standing next to him just staring at him. And one guy's got his phone up just lackadaisically. Oh, they're next to me. He's stabbing people in the head with scissors, and they don't care.
Where's security?
Obviously, the security in Asheville's gone downhill. Where's Doug Dillinger when you need him? And I told Stace, I pointed, I backed it up. I said, look at this. I've been in that building a bunch of times, and I guarantee you, if I had come up on the fan side of the railing and grabbed Ricky Morton and stabbed him in the head with scissors, I wouldn't have got out of there alive after the next 15 seconds. They would have been on me like duck on a June bug, like ugly on an ape, like white on rice, like bad booking in AEW. And then Jay White hit Roderick Strong with his finish, 1, 2, 3, and left. And then you see that Swerve got juice, and Ricochet is still standing there, now goes after Swerve with the scissors. And there's Prince Nana. And he goes up to Ricochet, and Ricochet stood him off by pointing the scissors at him. So Nana just stood there and watched Ricochet stab Swerve and punch him. And remember, I've told you, just because the the manager is not supposed to be able to beat up a wrestler doesn't mean when it's a babyface manager, he should not try to in some way help his friend. But he stands there through all that. He's stabbing him in the head with scissors. Then when Ricochet goes and gets a chair, that's when Nana springs into action. And he grabs the chair away from, or tries to, from Ricochet. So Ricochet shoves Nana into the stairs and takes the chair and hits him with it. And then takes the chair in the ring and unfolds it and sits next to Swerve and headbutts him so he can get his blood on his suit. And then puts Swerve in the chair. And Swerve is sitting there like an imbecile while Ricochet backed all the way up across the ring and ran and clotheslined him while he was looking at him coming. And then Roddy and Cole and Kyle O'Reilly get in the ring, and Ricochet bails out. And the fans were standing there silent, immobile, faintly smiling. What are they doing?
I don't know. I get the idea of wanting to do hot angles where baby faces get brutalized. We also saw Tommy Rich bleed all over the place for years. But the fans weren't really reacting. The babyface that made the save, kind of recent baby faces that the fans haven't taken to in the Undisputed Kingdom.
That do nothing but get the shit kicked out of them.
And yeah, security does nothing. He stabs the guy. How many times have we seen Swerve down and out now? See, that's the thing. Like I said, I see doing that with a babyface and the value in it. I don't think it's working here.
Swerve is not the traditional babyface, since he's the home invader and the baby threatener and the most dangerous man in AEW. How is the most dangerous man? Bad things will happen to you if you're close to him? Because he's always getting a shit kicked out of him and you'll catch some of it?
Yeah, the fans started reacting to him when he was a bad guy. Then they made him a babyface getting his ass kicked. They're not reacting the same way anymore.
They like Swerve's house because that's their part. That's their line. They all want to be, let's face it, the prime AEW audience is marks that want to be in the ring, like the ones that are already in the ring. And they identify with some of these marks that are already in the ring because they think if this guy can do it, I can. Anybody can. So they want their audience participation. And it's the same thing in a lot of cases with the Cody Rhodes, whoa, or the Seth Rollins, whoa, or whatever. They like the audience participation, but that's all Swerve's got now. is they want to chant Swerve's house. And otherwise, they need to call Swerve a fucking ambulance every week.
Yeah. You think he regrets throwing that toilet paper at Ricochet a couple days before this?
Well, he brought it on himself now that you think about it. If he hadn't opened his big mouth in his big bathroom and brought out all that toilet paper, then Ricochet wouldn't have had to stab him in the head with scissors.
It really hit me this week, too, coming out of the pay-per-view. They had such a long gap between the pay-per-view and Dynamite, it didn't feel like they had any momentum coming out of it to carry into Dynamite. It would be one thing if Dynamite was on Monday. But being on Wednesday and the pay-per-view Saturday, and then none of the people, MJF wasn't at Dynamite Live, Kenny wasn't there. I don't know, it felt like they didn't really, if they had any momentum coming out of that pay-per-view, they didn't capitalize on it.
Well, I think they had a lot of momentum, and all of it was slow. And then the next segment puzzled me, and I like Jeff Jarrett. I'm a fan of his work, and I'm a fan of what he's done in the business. And in my opinion, they should have had him at least promoting live events or agenting some matches or trying to teach some of these dumb shits how to work a long time ago. But I don't understand what they did here, because it's going to lead to having to look at Jeff Jarrett versus Dick the Boozer if it's followed through on. And I feel sorry for Jeff that at this point in his life that he has to tolerate having to work with a fucking louse like that. But I don't know that it's going to do any good for AEW, or more just tear down somebody else that's having to get in the ring with the plumber. But they did the backstage interview with Lethal and Sanjay and Zippy the Pinhead, and they haven't seen Jeff, but then Jeff comes in, and they know it's a big night for Jeff, but they were beating around the bush without saying what was going on. And they said, well, we can't find Karen. Jeff said, can you find Karen?
That's what Kurt said.
Well, hey, not at the DoubleTree. And then Karen comes in and says, I know wrestling is what brought us together, but it's also sometimes I've seen it tear you apart, and I'll support you. She pledged her undying love with whatever he was going to do, if he was going to go through with this, whatever this was. So then they go to a break, and they come back, and Jeff comes to the ring with his boots in his hand and a guitar on a stand. So now he's got the boots in his hand. He's teasing his retirement. And he got emotional and said he had a lot in his career to be thankful for, and it's sad to think about things maybe coming to an end. And he gave the history of the Jarrett family. Started in 1946 in Nashville when his grandmother took a second job selling tickets. We've covered it in more detail than they have on their program. And it changed his family's life. And
I never heard her called the CFO before.
Well, chief financial officer, she was the one that kept the books for Nick and Roy.
No, I know she was. I just never heard her called that before.
Well, because there was no title, but it sounds better than saying she was the bookkeeper, but she did keep the books. And Nina Bond was the only other lady working in the office. And she wasn't as good with numbers as Teeny was. But then in Jerry's history, and then he started in 1986, Jeff did, and finally he picked up the boots and he said, should the last outlaw ride off into the sunset? Hell no. And then he revealed, I've signed my last wrestling contract. I re-signed with AEW. So he's 56 years old. Or 55, I'm trying to count. Point being, probably this is the last contract he signed, but he signed a contract and Tony's going to pay him for another 2 years or 3 years or whatever, I guess. And they've already buried him and his whole crew of misfits. So I don't know what positive is going to come of it. They won't put him in positions that he has experience in that could help this company greatly. But he challenged for the title. He said, I want AEW gold on my last run. I want to get in the gauntlet match next week. And my New Year's resolution is to become AEW World Champion. Are you excited about where this is going to go?
I'm trying to keep an open mind about it because if it really, wrestling is about lying to people, but if it's really his last year, did he say year or just last contract?
Last contract.
So it could be multiple years. I guess that confirms he's not a Triple H guy.
I just don't want to see him have to work with Moxley.
Well, yeah, I think it's more about the road to getting a title match, which could be interesting. That's why I'm not just shitting on this, than the actual title match. And there goes Swami. If Jeff has to...
Swami thinks you're full of shit.
If Jeff has to somehow run through some kind of obstacle course to get there, it could be interesting. I just don't know what the hell that would be.
It could be interesting, or it could also be fucked up like everything else they do. And they've had, 3 or 4 years now to make Jeff... do anything with Jeff.
That's the other problem. If they begin this segment really with that promo in the back, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and the Giant, they've been treated a certain way on that show that you know how you should treat them. So when you begin with Jeff, like they should have almost done this where Jeff didn't even reference them. I just went out there and did it.
Can you imagine if they had given Jay Lethal half of the push they've given that fucking Garcia? A guy that can really work, and a guy that can really talk, and a guy that looks like something, and a guy that has experience, and people know who the fuck he is on some level already, and then you start giving him wins over top guys? Imagine that. Or take this fucking bland, mope-faced fucking cretin and let him beat everybody in the company and nobody gives a shit because he's still a bland, mope-faced indie jackoff. That's an option too. I'm editorializing now instead of asking a question, aren't I?
I don't know what your question is, but with Garcia and with Yuta, it's like Tony Khan has 2 Eric Watts. And that's not to put Eric down. It's more about what Eric symbolized and what he really was in 1992. And that's the way it comes across. People are being forced down everyone's throat. Wheeler Yuta is all over these main event segments now. And no one reacts to him.
All right, well, anyway.
Well, what did they say a long time ago? A full-grown version of Superhuman. That's what he looks like.
Yes, he looks like, the challenged fellow on the internet that jumps into barbed wire in his backyard. But speaking of mentally challenged individuals, one of the guys in the next segment would have been mentally challenged if I'd have been around because I would have taken a hammer to his fucking head. I have never seen, even on an AEW television show, this level of just unprofessionalism from some dipshit jackoff that nobody's ever seen or heard of before. Must have been somebody's brother-in-law. Somebody loaned him some tights. I can't believe he ever got booked on a wrestling show or made it through any kind of school acting the way he did. Did you see the 2 job guys they put Hobbs in with after they beat Hobbs on the pay-per-view?
I was wondering what you were talking about.
For no reason. Then they decide to rehabilitate him by letting him beat up 2 guys on this TV show. Both of the jobbers looked horrible. Okay, I'm sorry. And they've got FTR and they've got Edge in town. They ought to know 2 legitimate, decent-looking, athletic indie guys that could come and do a job on national television for who knows how much money. But instead, these 2 fucking illegitimate sons of goddamn homeless bums under the overpass in Hendersonville. That's North Carolina, in case you're not familiar with the Asheville area. One guy was being a comedian. Did you see it?
I did, and one guy was somewhat smaller even for AEW amongst the wrestlers.
But the comedian was what got me. That's the one I said earlier in the show. If it had been at OVW, at a wrestling school television taping, and I'd seen him do that, I would have come out from behind the announce desk and pulled him out of the ring myself. He was being a fucking comedian, overacting and trying to draw attention to himself like a jackoff. Phony bullshit. His shit looked horrible. And I want somebody that knows who this motherfucker is to play this for him so he will know that if Jim Cornette ever saw him in a goddamn wrestling match, I would hit the ring with my tennis racket and I dare you, you fucking fat, slobby, pissy-looking asshole, Do something about it. I've never seen this level of unprofessionalism. The boys should have been waiting for him in the back to kick the shit out of him for acting that way on national television. Fucking asshole. And this is what Hobbs has got to put up with. A fucking star ready to happen. But he's got to deal with these children and their fucking mark bullshit and their playing of the parts of the wrestlers without actually being them. And this guy was playing, oh, I'm going to act scared. Look, I'm pointing at him, how scared I am. And oh, I'm trepidatious and I'll chop him. But oh, I can't hurt him because you hit him like Aunt Clara on Bewitched. Fucking floating, deflated truck stop novelty condom.
Jesus.
Anyway, so that was that guy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously this was his big night, his big nationwide TV debut, and Max, he went all out and did all of his shtick. And
I can't, again, that's the kind of shit that guys used to be thrown out in the alley behind a building with their bag on top of them for, and never to be booked again.
Guys didn't want funny jobbers?
No.
You didn't want funny jobbers out there doing bits?
There's no call for funny jobbers doing bits. Speaking of funny jobbers doing bits, so Big Bill and Brian Keith were in the back of the arena with Officer Bar Brady doing a promo, and suddenly they noticed that FTR and Edge were standing 8 feet away from them under hot television lights. They couldn't have seen that until they happened to look in that direction, and then they exchanged the scripted banter that FTR and Edge had to stand there and listen to. Big Bill's dead. This has killed Big Bill deader than Kelsey's nuts. That he has to talk in that stilted manner, deliver this rotten material, be a flunky for Chris Jericho and his senior citizen crisis.
His reaction to Edge's like lame, whatever it was, making fun of his face, he reacted like a child. Like that.
Well, yeah, and Edge, nobody did Edge any favors by giving him any good material either here. And it was all to promote a 6-man tag team match on Saturday that nobody's going to fucking watch anyway. But and then MJF, he's in a VTR from last Saturday. He's already gone back to the movie set or wherever, and he doesn't have to deal with these fucking cretins. But he's doing a promo bloody after the match, laughing about beating Adam Cole. And now he wants his title back. And he started talking about Moxley. Under normal circumstances, you want everybody talking about your world champion and wanting to wrestle your world champion. But when your world champion is a delusional, mentally afflicted fucking rehab patient that works like a goddamn cow on ice, you don't want to see your top stars get mixed up in that. So now MJF is talking. This will be the arrow in the back. No, that's Julia Hart's gimmick. This will be the stake in MJF's heart if he has to get involved with Moxley. He will be no good to anybody else from that point on. And who would be the heel there?
Well, let's see what happens. Like Jeff Jarrett, I guess a lot of guys on the show are now calling out that they want the title. It doesn't necessarily have to be on Moxley. Someone else could be the champion.
We can hope.
I don't know who the hell that would be.
Exactly. So then the man of the hour, the Tower Power, Dick the Boozer, and the rest of the plumbing crew came out through the crowd to the ring to complete silence. When they turned their music off, you can hear a mouse pissing on cotton in the corner. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a growing problem. The fans are not... The AEW hardcore fans don't like the Moxley thing, and then the people who don't like AEW don't like the Moxley thing, and the fans don't react to it. This has been a complete swing and a miss every step of the way.
And they could sing Wild Thing. They knew the words. So it was somewhat, there was energy going on. But now this, whatever this is, they're just standing there staring at it. And then out comes FTR again. Remember, a year ago, 2 years ago, you heard their music. The people came up. there was a mild pop for FTR and a bigger pop when it was said from Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah, our town. They've killed them even in their hometown. And then Edge came out and got a big pop, but he used to be a star on real television. And he's lived there quite a while also. But now, they've got somebody the people will still cheer because they recognize that they were a big deal in the wrestling business a while back in a big company. And we know he can't be Edge. He has to be Adam Copeland because Edge is trademarked. Trademarked, it's been up a tree. But now his new name is Cope. Here's FTR and Cope. And to make sure we get the idea, they called him Cope with every breath.
Excalibur said it nonstop.
Cope is not going to work as a name for Edge. They need to cope now and get over it. Adam Copeland will work.
Get ready for Cope versus Dope on AEW Dynamite.
Next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central.
Not even the Cope. Not that it's any better, but...
Well, no, what is the Cope?
But what is Cope?
At the Copacabana, he can get that music. Tony will buy it.
What is Cope other than what the AEW fans need to do with the reality of AEW? Cope with it.
They're monkeying with him by giving him a stupid fucking name.
Oh, no, I promise you this is his idea. I promise you.
Well, I promise you that somebody at a responsible company would have ixnayed it, whether it was his idea or the Pope's idea.
Yeah.
Even if it was the Pope's idea to cope, there'd be no hope for Cope for the Pope.
If FTR really is friends, they didn't say, yeah, this is a bad idea. That's the worst name any wrestler's ever had, ever.
So the main event was Wheeler Useless, Claudio, and Dick the Boozer against FTR and Cope. And right as the bell rang, Tony Schiavone plugged the death of Sweet Daddy Siki. So he had a hand in training Cage and Cope and
Ron Hutchinson.
Ron Hutchinson. He was a real trailblazer for African American. I guarantee you, Tony Schiavone had never fucking seen or heard of Sweet Daddy Siki before 4:00 that afternoon in the production meeting. And Sweet Daddy Siki was a big deal in Ontario, and I'm sure he did have some hand in helping Ron Hutchinson at his school and etc. But a point is, somebody just gave Tony bullet points. Talk about Sweet Daddy Siki. Who? He helped train Edge. And Ron Hutchinson. Tony, who? The guy that trained Edge. So the reason for this six-man tag was that the baby faces stopped the heels from pouring bleach down the mascot's throat. So that old angle, that old chestnut. And I was expecting to write, well, you know, FTR's work is great and Edge knows what he's doing and poor Claudio knows what he's doing. It's just these other fucking two. And then I swear to God, Edge got into a spot with Claudio and Edge couldn't figure out that Claudio was the one supposed to have the headlock. And they started doing the fucking they did something and then came together and Claudio was going to uppercut Edge and then grab him in a headlock. But as he went for the uppercut, Edge grabbed him in a headlock. Well, then Claudio backed him in the ropes, but he was like, he started to shoot him off, and then he was telling him, I need to have the head. And then they fucking flummoxed around, and then Claudio grabbed the headlock, and then Edge shot him off for the spot. I'm like, even these guys, it's contagious. And Schaefer posted Edge. They went to the break. Moxley got on Edge with his fake forearms and the punches that just embarrassing. Cash Wheeler made a great comeback. He, again...
No, always. Always with him. He's always really good.
In the ring, he may be the best. I said Shelton Benjamin was the best wrestler on the roster, and he is because he's gotten over with no help. But Cash may be the best in-ring physical performer. and you never get to see it practically, and he's been made completely meaningless on the card. And, but it's good stuff. And at least they timed their break. They went to their last break at 3 minutes till 10 because they came back on at 10 o'clock so they could get that big overrun. And finally, they built all match to Edge and the plumber getting in. And they got in and faced off with each other and traded forearms. And then Edge went for the spear, but Moxley rolled out. So they fought to the back of the arena and then fought back to the same place they left, and Moxley tagged out. They just had to go back into stands for no fucking reason for 45 seconds. And then Edge and Wheeler got in the ring and did shit while you could see on camera the other four guys crouched on the floor in the respective corners just looking up watching, waiting for their cue. Not selling. There wouldn't be anything to sell that long anyway, but just taking a knee and watching what was going on instead of being on the apron involved in the match. I know 15 guys that would have kicked the shit out of all of these guys for doing that stuff, and now they call it that way. So they crotched Edge on the ring post and leveled FTR because they're ineffective and don't matter. And then Moxley put Edge on the desk and took forever. He was going for a pile driver, but he was milking it. And then you realize he was taking so long and milking it, and time was standing still because Jay White had to come to hit the ring behind everybody's back and hit his finish on Wheeler. And then Claudio and Schaefer chased Jay White to the entranceway. And Edge backdropped Moxley on the announce desk, and then the camera panned over, or they pulled up the shot of Claudio and Marina Schaefer at the tunnel standing there staring at Jay White. And they missed the shot of Edge spearing Moxley through the railing. And then all three babyfaces suddenly jumped up into the ring, and FTR hit their finish on Wheeler, and Edge speared him 1, 2, 3. Because the hometown guys had to win, and nobody's going to beat Moxley, so everybody beats Useless. And Jay White was necessary in this confusing fucking mess because he has some issue going on with these other fuckers. And you can't expect any kind of coherence when you're trying to keep 18 alleged angles alive all at the same time. So there you go, and that was that show. What'd you think?
I mean, there were moments the people there really seemed to get into it. There were also some cold tags.
Ugh.
I'm not a big Edge fan, and I never really have been. And I think he was a main eventer in a period of time where there weren't a lot of main eventers still there because a lot of guys were starting to leave. And also when the company was the main event more than the actual wrestlers. And since he returned to WWE and then came to AEW, I just haven't enjoyed any of his stuff. And then you start thinking like, well, they keep telling me he's a legend, but I don't really like anything he does. I hate his promos.
Well, remember, I was more complimentary, especially when he was in the WWE, because the shit made sense, came together, did get a little dramatic at points, but I was pulling for him. He's a heck of a guy. But, especially after this last time when he jumped off the cage and hurt himself, he's been gone so long, he comes back and everything else is so dreary. There's nothing that he can get into that you really think he can lift up or do anything with.
Yeah, see, I don't think there's much excitement about Cope versus Dope. I don't think a lot of people want to see him against Moxley. I don't think FTR has any excitement from any fans right now. Because this was the best case scenario. Hometown fans.
They just gave $25,000 to the city and they still couldn't get a standing ovation.
I don't know. I think that all these guys have had a lot of damage and we blame Tony, but a lot of it is also self-induced. When you decide you're going to be Cope, and he put up a picture on social media, or someone did, of him and his attorney, like celebrating that they got the notice that they trademarked Cope.
Oh, good God.
So this has been in the plannings for a while.
Oh, boy.
And I think he's going to have to cope with the fact that no one likes his name. And he's going to have to cope with the fact that this is a bad idea. And Adam Copeland, actually, it's not as good as Edge because Edge was established, but it's as good as you're going to get.
They knew who Edge was, though, because of the modern idea of, talking about people by their real names as well in publicity. And the fans have kind of figured out that Adam Copeland was Edge's real name.
Yeah, I mean, the song says you don't know me. Yeah, because you keep changing your fucking name. Just pick one and stick with it. I get you can't use Edge, but we've already seen you as Adam on this show for a while. You broke your leg, you were Adam Copeland. You come back, you're just Cope.
Couldn't he have been Corner?
What?
If he couldn't be Edge, could he be Corner?
Yeah, that's the thing. Could he be the Edge? Could he change his name legally to Edge Copeland?
Well, no, then the U2 guy would get on him, wouldn't he?
Well, I mean, it's two Stings. It's two different forms of entertainment. Unless he puts out an album, then he'd be fucked.
Well, I tell you, they had a fight over that. Fucking Steve Borden finally put him in a Scorpion Deathlock, and Sting was like, "Oh, Roxanne, come help me out of this Scorpion Deathlock. You win."
Another one in your vocal range. Yeah, you're very fortunate here today.
Roxanne, you don't want to turn on your TV. AEW's on tonight. You don't want to see this stuff, I'm telling you. Go out and turn tricks.
That's the problem.
Take sperm from strangers.
All right.
It'll be more fun than watching AEW.
Will you stop it? But that's
Roxanne.
But that's the problem here. You have FTR who've barely been on this show. They've been on Collision, I guess, I assume. But the fans, this is their hometown crowd. This is the best it's going to get. Adam Copeland hasn't been on this show. He's now back. Moxley's been all over this show. And the fans don't want to see him anymore, and they don't react to him. And then Claudio, Marina, and Wheeler, yeah, that is his name, Wheeler,
yeah,
are just charisma vacuums.
What happened to Pac? He's in the group. He doesn't come to work anymore. Not that I'm complaining.
He probably needs a visa renewal. It's that time of the year.
I thought Moxley was the king of that country. He should be able to wave his scepter and get Pac in.
Yeah, well... That's, but then they get that moment. I mean, this is, how many times did it happen with Pac where he's in the middle of stuff, he disappears, you don't even notice. And then a few weeks later, you're like, hey, where's Pac? And then a couple months later, he just shows up again like, oh my God, it's Pac. He's returned from the abyss more times than anyone in AEW. And that was Dynamite.
Oh...
We have landed once again, folks. Hello, people of Earth. We are here in the future.
Do I have to chew gum when we time travel like you do to keep your ears from popping in the airplane? Because that was painful. Am I popping my peas? When I talk about being painful?
I don't know what you're doing over there.
I should get one of those screens. That big old screen they put in front of the microphone where you're popping of your peas and your all that Daffy Duck kind of stuff. That doesn't.
Oh, come on, man.
Translate
I'm
into
here too. I don't want to hear this.
You're there too. Well, I'm over here now.
You certainly are. Well,
You've already got me leaning back away from the microphone. You say I'm too boisterous.
Well, we are here, ladies and gentlemen, in the future.
We dicked around and we still ain't got no ratings for that shit show that they started the year off with. Apparently how is it that January 1st being a holiday affected the ratings? Because the business offices are closed every Wednesday night at 8:00 Eastern. You would think that since everybody was open up on Thursday, things would just progress right along as normal. Wouldn't you?
Well, you would think. I mean, there's no real reason there should be any delay on the ratings. It's just data being pulled. All the company has to do is release the data.
Well, yeah, so they need to get some more pullers. They need to get some yankers because the pullers ain't doing their job. They need to get us a yank that data. What if they could go to the American Dairy Association, get some cow milkers to start yanking data? They would be yanking cranks all over the country.
Well, as we were saying, we do not have Dynamite ratings as of the present, as we are recording. However, there's another rating story I've been waiting to see how it played out. AEW Collision.
Oh, boy.
On December 21st. I got to find the overall number. It was like the highest overall number in years.
But now, bear in mind, this is the episode of the much maligned Collision program that immediately followed a college football bowl game that did 18 million viewers on TNT TV, whatever. What is Collision on these days? Is it TBS or is it over on TNT still?
It's on TNT.
Well, okay. Well, they had 18 million people watching the basketball right before this program came on the air, and let's see how many of them stuck around.
Well, Jim, I have it right here, as reported by WrestleNomics, AEW Collision, December 21st on TNT, 8 to 10 p.m. 635,000 viewers on average. It is the highest overall number and key demo number since July 29th, 2023. And it had the
and by the way, that was when our friendly neighborhood CM Punk was running things over on that branch of the company. That's when they were doing some good grappling over there. Had some big matches. Felt like something. The summer of 23. Brian Adams ought to do an update.
All right. Well, they say you're old.
It was the summer of 23. Yeah, Punk and FTR. They had some bouts with that other guy I forgot about. Anyway.
Well, Jim.
It was the summer of 23.
They had a big lead-in. A lot of people thought this was cause for celebration, such a big number, but they had a big lead-in. They had Clemson versus Texas College football. It's a playoff game. But here's the quarterly numbers. 8 to 8:15 p.m., quarter one. Big Boom AJ and Big Justice live promo.
God damn it.
Followed by Ricochet versus Will Ospreay with picture-in-picture. 1,260,000 viewers.
Holy shit. So Big Boom AJ is now officially the ratings champion of all history of AEW.
501,000 viewers in the key demo.
So they only lost 16.7 million people from the football game. That ain't bad.
We go to quarter two, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. Ricochet versus Ospreay continued. And an Adam Cole MJF live promo. And I actually saw this. I wish you had it so we could have talked about it. 801,000 viewers.
Wait a minute.
Is that a duck?
You know what that is, don't you, Brian?
Now, shut up.
That's the truffle pig. That's my friend Joni Aries out in Washington State, that is, sent me it's a toy for Harley. It's a plastic little truffle pig. And
why are you playing with it?
Well, because the truffles, grow under the shit. You got to get really deep to get them truffles. And since they've lost 459,000 viewers in 15 minutes, they're already underground. They're under the shit. We need to get the truffle pig to root them out.
Well, we go to quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation of the Adam Cole MJF Undisputed Kingdom live angle. Chris Statlander's backstage promo. An ad break. Orange Cassidy's backstage promo. And the start of Penelope Ford versus Chris Statlander. 634,000 viewers.
Ouch. Well, that's 167,000 viewers, but it doesn't look so bad since they just lost 459,000. But that is they have lost half of the audience they started with in 45 minutes. Okay.
Well, we go to quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m. AEW Collision, once again, not Dynamite. Penelope Ford versus Chris Statlander continued with picture-in-picture and full screen ads, that is.
What other thing would there be? Either picture-in-picture or full screen.
They had both. The post-match with Mercedes Moné, an ad break. The Learning Tree Big Boom AJ Big Justice live promo. Because Jericho found a way to latch onto them.
Big Boom and Big Bill and Big Justice had a big promo, and boom!
491,000 viewers.
Oh, boy, howdy. That's another 143,000 that they're down in the first hour. It makes a total of, 140,000 in quarter four makes a total of I can't do this math, 780,000, give or take, from the start. Go ahead.
And as we wrap up this hour, let me just say 501 was the key demo for quarter one. It went from 501 to 380 to 284 to 219.
They had more people in the key demo in the first quarter than they did watching entirely by quarter four. Certainly they picked up some steam at the all-important top of the 9 o'clock hour or whatever time this was.
Well, usually it is a bounce. Maybe in this case, because of all the big, there'll be a big bounce, but we'll find out 9 to 9:15 p.m., quarter five, the big 9 o'clock hour. The Learning Tree, Big Boom, AJ, Big Justice, Anthony Bowen's live promo.
The Bowens? Bowens was involved with Big Bill and Big Boom and Big Justice and Brian Keith? Was he in there?
Deonna Purrazzo and Taya Valkyrie and Tony Storm's backstage angle. And the start of Shelton Benjamin versus Daniel Garcia with picture-in-picture ads.
Okay, that's the one that I saw that I talked about.
493,000 viewers.
Well, there you go. The big bounce comes. Big bounce. See what I did there? They picked up 2,000.
Well, we go now to quarter six, 9:15, 9:30 p.m. Shelton Benjamin versus Daniel Garcia continued. The post-match with the Hurt Syndicate and Swerve Strickland, an ad break, and Mark Briscoe versus the Beast Mortos, 495,000 viewers.
So, see, okay, now, what did I say earlier in the program? Shelton Benjamin is the only wrestler in AEW that's actually getting over. He's the only person that actually increased these numbers.
Or at least held on to him.
Is it though? The 491 to 493 to 495.
Right. I'm saying
they're going in the right direction.
No one else even held on to an audience. He actually has a build. No one else even
Nobody held on to an audience. It was like lemmings going over the edge of a fucking cliff.
Well, we go now.
They couldn't hold on to their hands were greased trying to hold on to these people. They were like sperm swimming up the birth canal.
Well, let's go back to the cliff.
Get me out of here.
Quarter seven, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The continuation of Briscoe versus Mortos with picture-in-picture and full-screen ads. The Julia Hart promo.
The only one.
The Thunder Rosa Mariah May live angle, and an ad break. 469,000 viewers. We've now dipped below 200 in the key demo, 192.
There you go. Again, the only person to gain the audience, Shelton Benjamin and the Hurt Syndicate.
And we go now to quarter eight, 9:45 to 10 p.m. Claudio Castagnoli versus Darby Allin with picture-in-picture ads. 459,000 viewers. And they held the 192.
So I can do this math because it's almost even. They lost 801,000 viewers from start to finish. That's got to be a record, right? Never. When they did, we ought to go back, and I don't expect you to do it right now because, for heaven's sake, you're good, but you may not be that good. But their first show back many moons ago, when they did 1.2 million people, to say that was the show that Punk came back, wasn't it? They've done two big numbers. I think the first show and the show where Punk came back. We ought to go back and reflect and see how much of their audience they held on those. Because they ain't sticking around today. Even when they get a big number.
If you know you have a big lead-in, what do you do if you're Tony? Like, all joking aside. Now, Big Boom, AJ, and Big Justice are certainly not wrestling personalities, even though they've done some stuff recently. But they
to a sports audience or a college basketball audience, they probably know them from
Right.
Getting the fucking rotisserie chicken at Costco or whatever their fucking MO is over there.
If you're on TikTok, my kids know them from TikTok. So, I mean, they're known. But they go from them.
Tickery talk. This chick. All right.
Well, it goes from that to Ospreay versus Ricochet. Is that how you would have started? If you know you're going to have a big
that's definitely a departure. They're showing they got something for everybody. That's the problem, is that there's really nothing that AEW is doing right now that would be of interest to an audience, I don't think, that's watching college basketball, a sports-oriented audience or a young guy audience, because they look at half the roster. Well, I can whip these fucking guys. The other part, well, look at these stupid fucking people doing this bullshit. Or what? MJF could attract that kind of audience, but he's been neutered. And Ospreay could be cool if he wasn't just left to his own devices with trying to put all these other fucking indie weasels over, like his friend Felcher and Okada and etc. But do you really see anybody on this roster anybody that's not an indie wrestling fan, but that's a casual WWE style fan that's used to professional looking guys at least, or heaven forbid a real sports fan with a UFC or basketball, football crossover? Like there's been a crossover in the fan bases of football and wrestling. A lot of times because there's been a crossover between football players to wrestlers in the past. That doesn't often happen anymore. There was a big crossover in the fan base of MMA and wrestling until wrestling got fucking silly and soft and all girly. But I think there's less crossover for AEW style wrestling amongst any mainstream sports fan today, don't you think?
Should they have started with the Hurt Syndicate?
It wouldn't have hurt. It sure, because then there you've not only got guys coming out that look like stars and that they are probably know, if they're going to know anybody on the show, they'd know MVP Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin from the big time. And you could have had Shelton do or Lashley do some of the shit they do where they just ragdoll and throw motherfuckers around, and it could have been impressive for an audience that just finished the basketball game or the football game or whatever the fuck the game was. Did I say basketball a minute? Well, goddamn, it's all played with a ball.
Well, it's interesting, too. They began with Ospreay versus Ricochet, so any casual fan, whatever that means, anyone who's not a usual viewer of AEW who stayed and said, let me see what this is, saw a wrestler getting pelted with toilet paper by the
God,
fans.
that's right, yeah.
It's the first thing they see after Big Boom AJ and Big Justice. No Rizzler, apparently.
And then old Big Justice, he's bigger than Little Ricochet.
He throws a better punch than every single person on the AEW roster. I don't know if he can do anything else in the ring, but he threw a better punch than everyone they have.
He's got more weight behind it.
Well, we will have to wait and see if these Dynamite ratings come in, Jim.
But that's a new red. That's I don't know percentage-wise, because didn't we figure out they lost about 66%, 2/3 of their audience on, no, maybe not. But this is, well, they ended up with 450, just roughly. I'm not going to ask you to do any work. They lost 60% of the audience here or more. That's 60 to 63, let's say. Somebody will figure it out and tell me I was right.
All right, well, we've gone... can you stop with that? People aren't going to know exactly what it is every segment. They're going to think you're farting. They're going to think you have a duck.
No, it's the truffle pig.
How would anyone know that?
Because I just said it a few minutes ago. We were talking about the same shit.
Well, let's get a few more topics. Speaking of the same shit, Jim, the Young Bucks recently did an interview. And a lot of the listeners have been sending us in the CornyDriveThru@gmail.com, as well as just sending it over to us however they can at this point. They did an interview with Tunnel Talk on Social Suplex.
Is that a friend of theirs that's got his head up his own ass?
I'm not sure, but it says Tunnel Talk on Social Suplex, whatever that may be.
Oh, boy.
Matt says he enjoys being uncomfortable and trying new things.
What? He enjoys being uncomfortable. That's why he sleeps on broken glass every night, folks.
Nick added, I think part of it is after doing it for 20 plus years now, sometimes the normal gets boring and you just want to think outside the box.
Oh, Christ.
Matt continued, you want to entertain yourself, but to Nick's point, you go to a rock show and you want to hear the songs that you know. Whenever they play the new stuff, everyone is just like, oh, come on, the new stuff, this sucks. Because you're going to bands your dad likes, kid. But as a performer, as a creative person, I always want to come up with something fresh.
Then why have they been having the same matches for the last fucking 15 years?
Here's a good example. When we did the EVPs thing, we were like, let's just have really boring matches. Let's stop doing all the super athletic moves that get big reactions.
Oh, the super athletic move. You know, these guys are the next thing to fucking Alexander Carolyn. They're a goddamn experiment. They've been trained and scientifically enhanced since they were babies in the cradle to fucking be the supreme athletes. But go ahead.
It is hard because one of the things in general is that most of our stuff is pretty exciting. It's high spots. We did it. Nick added, I stopped doing dives for maybe 8 months. I didn't do a tumble out to the floor for about 8 months. And that was on purpose.
I didn't do a tumble.
We literally wanted people to think, are these guys not athletic anymore? Are they just boring wrestlers now?
Oh.
So let's stop there. There's a little more to quote here, but the idea, it's not a crazy idea, the idea that a babyface would change their style if they became a heel as opposed to a heel who backs himself into a babyface.
Correct.
That concept isn't crazy. But
Let's be boring is a crazy concept. And by the way, you're always boring because it is the same shit all the time. And the fucking EVPs was just the same old shit with rotten booking or even rottener. Is rottener a fucking verb? Anyway.
It is now.
What it is these guys are childish in more ways than one. They've always had a bad fucking attitude. Hence the name of their book, Killing the Business, because everybody told them their shit would kill the business. And well, looky here. But in Ring of Honor in 2010 or whatever. And remember, I've told a story how we ended up with them before we wanted them to begin with. When they were working in TNA and Sinclair had bought Ring of Honor and we were working on contracts with the talent, they had called and talked to me and to Delirious. And yes, for the Ring of Honor audience of the time, they were known. They were a lot younger. They were certainly a lot cheaper. I wasn't particularly big fans, but I knew the audience liked them, right? So we were trying to be nice, and we both, Delirious and I both said, well, you guys are under contract with TNA through the end of the year. By the end of the year, I'm sure we can work something out. We'd like to have you, keep in touch with us. Let us know what the fuck's going on with you. That type of thing, right? We get a call 2 weeks later. They fucking quit, and they let them out of their contracts to get rid of them because they didn't want them down there either. They said, when can we start? We're like, what the fuck? And then we had to joke off into talking Greg the office boy into flying these two numbnutses from fucking Cucamonga or wherever they're from to the East Coast, plus a hotel room, plus they'd been making $500 a piece per show with the previous Ring of Honor, which, again, at this point, whether you can say they'd ever drawn any money or not now is questionable. But they'd never drawn any money then. And they only wanted to fly them out for TV tapings where the budget was bigger instead of putting them in Collinsville, Illinois. And then they got fucking pissed and started complaining because we weren't booking them when we didn't fucking want them at that point to begin with. But I had a point to that story, Brad. Oh, So they had a TV match one time. We're doing TV in Baltimore. And their gravy had gone all over my plate already, even back then. Right? And Delirious had sat down with him and said, whoever they were working with, I can't remember, but we wanted a serious match. We put it in the main event slot. We didn't want goddamn cartwheels and grab ass. He sat down with them to be more of the generation to give advice and said, hey, have a good match with these guys and let's the fast-paced high spots and boom, 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 but not so much of the gymnastics that you do, right? So we're sitting in a truck, and you know what they did? They started twisting the arm, holding a wrist lock, standing flat-footed, and then tagging out, and boom, and coming in and hammer fisting the shoulder. And they did that for 10 minutes, that kind of thing. And I'm looking at him, I said, what? How we're supposed to get this young fucking hippy-dippy fucking high-spot tag team, and instead we get Bruiser and fucking Crusher? I said, they're working flat-footed like fucking Ox Baker because they're pissed because we said just wrestle athletically. Don't do your goddamn gymnastic horse shit because we're trying to run a serious operation here, and you guys ain't the top tag team. And instead of trying to prove that they could do it, they instead chose to stink up 10 minutes of TV match, which I then took back and edited out about 3 minutes to stink less before it aired. But they've always had bad attitudes unless they're allowed to do whatever they want and go home whenever they want and get their music and their friends' jobs and their wife can do the fucking merchandise or whatever. Rotten attitudes. How did that come up?
Oh, we were talking about their quotes from an interview with
yes, so they think that they should have boring matches because they're heels, and that way people were already booing them anyway because they're just sick of them. But heels don't have matches like baby faces. That's true. But heels have exciting matches like heels have. And you work just as hard on being a heel and putting yourself in that position and swaying the audience's emotions and roughing up a guy that the fans are more likely to be sympathetic to because of the issue and his demeanor. And that's the way that you perform the art of being a pro wrestling heel. But since these children developed their own selves on their fucking trampoline, they didn't get very deep in this. The only deep thing they've got is the truffle pig looking for the ratings under the shit.
They were asked about some of the fan comments on social media, about their in-ring skills. Here's a quote from Nick. I see some of it. I stay off most of social media, but one thing that really pissed me off was someone said, I thought the Young Bucks were washed. And I was thinking, oh, come on. You guys fell for the gimmick that we were doing.
Oh, God.
We didn't forget how to wrestle out of nowhere. Come on, don't be dumb.
Brian, is this the first time in history that you've ever heard any professional wrestler say, ha ha, I fooled you, my match didn't stink because I can't wrestle, I was trying to make it stink?
The other thing is this a rewriting of history in a sense?
Yes.
Because the Young Bucks, who were killing the ratings in every segment they were in, and people were talking about how they're dead on arrival right now. No one wants to see them as baby faces. No one wants to see them as heels. And they don't mean anything.
They started getting a little backlash when it became obvious that even though FTR at the time was the much superior team and the people wanted to support them, the little weasels would never clearly put them over in a 2 out of 3 situation or without a bunch of bells and whistles and oh why I oughtas. That's when they first started getting a little backlash from even their faithful, and then it went downhill from there.
Remember when they disappeared off TV, when they came out and the fans started chanting FTR at them? They were on the ramp and it was like an aggressive, like, FTR!
Yeah.
And then we didn't see the Young Bucks for a while. Because, listen, this is Tony's project, but they're doing their project. It's just Tony's funding it in the middle of Tony's project. They work with their referee. They've got their moron announcer on commentary. They've got all their friends there as stooges or giving them jobs. They protected Colt Cabana's job. He's done nothing since. I don't want to hear about, behind the scenes, he's a big player. Behind the scenes, the company's a fucking mess. So give me a break.
Well, behind the scenes, what's he doing? Getting coffee? They don't have producers they ever listen to. There's no reason. How is he going to tell anybody how to do anything to begin with?
They turned heel and didn't know how to do it. And Tony Khan didn't know how to do it. Jack Perry and the Young Bucks attacked Tony Khan. First of all, if the Jack Perry shit is in any way run by the Bucks and they thought it was a good idea and then Tony did, there's part of the problem. Why is he the scapegoat? Exactly what is he the scapegoat of? I mean, none of it makes any sense. And the Bucks didn't work. They were the kind of heels that Moxley is now. They don't cause people to want to see you get your ass kicked. They cause people to turn the channel. And it wasn't because they were boring. I don't remember seeing those complaints. Do you?
No.
They're boring now. I used to like them, but now they're boring. I don't remember seeing that at all.
I mean, I agree with them. The matches did stink, but that was no different than their previous matches. Because they all stink. Because it's the same shit from these fucking kids that want to fucking play like they're tough guys. And whether it's Pie Face or the bald one, the one flips over and they ram the fucking guy in together, and then the one backflips over the second rope and then moonsaults off the fucking apron. They've been doing that since 2010. I've been having to look at that shit. It's their play wrestling that could only go so far when it was on an indie level and they went to different buildings a few times a year live, and the 700 people or whatever there were just happy to see them. But it doesn't play every week because normal people watching television across the country are saying, what the fuck? You expect me to believe this guy's a fucking wrestler? And look at what they look like, and look at how they talk, and look at how they act, and look at these fucking matches.
Well, here's the question I have. When they come back, and if the rumors are true and they come back with Kenny Omega at some point to be the ones that take down Moxley and the Death Riders, the original EVP, save AEW and save Tony Khan, even though they beat up Tony Khan a year ago, but they saved the company.
Well, time heals all wounds.
From the Death Riders. Is Road Warrior Buck gonna sell for Moxley? Or is Moxley and Claudio, are they going to be selling for the Bucks after not selling for anyone?
I predict that old Matthew, he'll double fucking Northern Lights suplex Claudio and Moxley together on top of Marina Shafir, who will have been leveled moments before.
See, they're still EVPs. They should use that and fuck with Moxley. They come back like, John, you think you're so big and bad? Guess what? I'm an EVP. My wife is now going to design your shirts. She's in charge of merch again. You're fucked, man. There goes your income. Again, maybe one day in the future, the Death Riders versus the Elite. Would you put money on it that it's going to happen?
Well, I tell you, you can put money on most anything these days, but I think that might be a sucker's bet. Maybe we'll bet that if it happens, it's going to suck. That way we wouldn't be suckers. But you know what wouldn't suck is if you, not you, Brian, but the you out there in podcast land, if you won a bunch of money. Because we talked about these playoffs they're doing in the bowl games and all. It's big shit happening in the sports world, right? This is the time of year where, well, even more people do that kind of thing than normal. And right now, you can get in on the action at the DraftKings Sportsbook. They're an official sports betting partner of the NFL, And you know what they do in the NFL, don't you, Brian? They score touchdowns. You've seen those.
Well, some do. Some teams don't.
Well, I thought sooner or later, everybody does at one time or another, don't they? These things happen in football.
I'm so lucky to have grown up here as a Giants fan. I don't know if I could have taken the Mets and the Jets. The Jets are not a pretty sight.
Well, if you want to bet that the Jets and the Mets can get together and score big, you can go to DraftKings and you can bet on scoring touchdowns, because that's the key to winning the game, is the scoring of the touchdowns. Is
there a way to deliver these lines without sounding like Bill Cosby?
Well, it's the scoring of the touchdowns is the key to winning in the playoffs. And if you can bet on like just go to DraftKings and download that sports book, and you can bet on whether there's going to be a touchdown or not. And it's football. Now, that's a pretty safe bet, because if you were going to bet there's going to be a home run, well, you might have a problem there. That's more difficult to accomplish in a football game. But let's say you're not an experienced bettor. Let's say you're ready to place your first bet. Bet on something simple, like one of the players to score 6 points. Wow, that ought to be easy. That's not even 10. Why, they'd only have to score a touchdown and get the extra point after the punt passer throws the kick in from offsides. And they could do that. So you can go to the DraftKings Sportsbook and make your pick right now on their app. Boy, I'll tell you what, also,
yes.
boy, I'll tell you, I'm a COVID survivor, damn it. New customers of DraftKings, new ones, as opposed to people who've been hanging around forever and need to move along before they're arrested for mopery. But new DraftKings customers can bet $5, and they're going to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Now, let's say there's a football game going to be played, and you're going to bet $5 on somebody's going to score a touchdown. Then you could get that $200 in bonus bets, so you could bet on 40 more people. How many people's on the team?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really watch it.
Well, I'm sure 40 would cover the main ones that might have a chance on scoring a touchdown. And then you've got it covered. You're bound to win. Just bet on everybody.
Well, again, you're not bound to win, but there's always a chance, and you can see if it's your day.
Yeah.
If your numbers come in, however you want to say it, by downloading the DraftKings Sportsbook app.
There you go, folks. I'll tell you what, right now, all of our listeners, your number's up. So go now and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JCE. That is the code JCE that will allow you to manipulate and finagle the website into giving you the $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown and the touchdowns are yours.
That's right, they are. And, Jim, unfortunately, you gave COVID to our friend who usually comes and reads his little announcement, so we do not have him here.
Wait a minute, Styles Bitchley?
That's not Styles Bitchley. We
We
exposed that a long time ago, Jim.
I thought he was coming in to do the cover of this, but he's still on probation, huh?
Well, we do have a disclaimer here for the people.
Yes. Well, I'm a COVID survivor,
Well, so am I.
Okay. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available. For problem gambling, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. We thank you. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance of same. See additional terms and responsible gaming resources or at them or for them. See dkng.co/audio. And their email is too big. It cuts the last word off the right side.
Once again, DraftKings, the crown is yours. Promo
Getting
code
back to that.
JCE. All right.
All righty then.
Jim, a couple more things before we wrap things up here today. I have a report from the recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Oh, boy.
Dave Meltzer wrote, so for WrestleMania, the reports of Rhodes versus John Cena are accurate as things stand right now. The idea of Cena challenging one of the two champions in an attempt to break the so-called record of 16 reigns that he and Flair share has
Woo!
that he and Flair share.
You know, they got more than their fair share.
Has been a working idea for months. At first, it was the Raw title, given Rhodes versus Rock would be the other title, and the People's title. This isn't etched in stone, because whatever Rock wants to do, he's likely going to be able to do.
He always puts that in, doesn't he?
I do know that...
I don't think Rock didn't get to do last year what he wanted to do, did he?
I do know that people are expecting him to appear on the show in some form. As for wrestling on the show, I even know people at the top who are expecting that. But it's not a sure thing, and one would think that the Netflix show, on the 6th, will kick off the season and tip the hand. Rock could do another match, even though WWE title versus People title was what he wanted after Mania. So a few things here. What are your thoughts on the idea of Cena versus Cody at WrestleMania? And based on last year's WrestleMania, is it a little bit of a letdown not to get The Rock versus Cody?
Well, yeah, honestly, again, this is something in reverse from last year. They had teased something, and then they tried to give him Rock and Cody, and they said no. But now they kind of might expect Rock and Cody. If Rock is going to be involved in some kind of way, it should be with Cody. I don't know about the WWE title versus People's Champion belt, the People's title. It sounds so odd.
The belt that Muhammad Ali crafted with his own hands.
Yes, he was. A lot of people don't know. Before he started boxing at Joe Martin's gym here in Louisville when he was 12 years old, he was an accomplished welder. He built that bicycle that the people stole from him. That's when he went to the police. What I'm trying to say is that unless Rock was going to drop the People's title to Cody, then I don't like the title versus title, because it again, The Rock as a heel in that situation against Cody or against Roman Reigns, I believe should be the one to do the job. But at the same time, does Cody want the People's title? Because it's not really the People's title. It's The Rock's bullshit heel People's title. You see what I'm saying? I don't think that's an important part. The Rock can play it up like, if you beat me, you'll be the People's champion. But I don't know that that's an important selling point to the public.
See, the other thing is, behind the scenes, The Rock could build it up like, I win this one and then you'll get the next one. But what if he gets a film role? What if something happens? Like, The Rock's a little bit of a different case than any other wrestler. There are outside things that could prevent. Like right now, they don't know if he's going to do WrestleMania. It's January.
Yes, but besides that, it's age. It's The Rock probably has this big WrestleMania single match main event in him. But, what about next year or the year after that when he's 50-something and he's got a movie role or he's torn a fucking muscle in training or whatever? No, you don't, for the sake of one major appearance a year, derail somebody that's producing the revenue on a regular basis that Cody is, or even that Roman Reigns is, or as Seth Rollins is, or as CM Punk is right now, in my mind, because it's not... I don't know what the percentage would be, but back in the 80s, 90s, when Vince was so wrapped up at WrestleMania, that was months of his normal company's income in one night. And that ain't the same configuration anymore. They can make tens and hundreds of millions of dollars a week between the goddamn site fees and the rights fees and the pay-per-views and the peacocks. And so you don't cut the legs off of somebody that's there. People will say Roman Reigns is part-time. Roman Reigns is a goddamn workhorse next to The Rock. So the more that they can get those people there, the more that they need to be putting those people over the people that are still attraction. Even Brock. If Brock comes back, I think he needs to put Gunther over. But goddamn it, draw tens of millions of dollars. Do you hear me what I'm telling you?
All right, well, that covers The Rock and Cody. the match that was teased last year, or The Rock
Yes.
and Roman. What about Cody Rhodes and John Cena?
I love that if The Rock is not going to be involved. Because, again, it's a story for Cena. You know, can I be 17-time champion, even though the numbers are fudged on everybody's part? But that's a story for Cena, and he's going to be a raving babyface. But at the same time, Cody would love to take on that challenge, I believe, of having a match with John Cena at WrestleMania where he's even the subtle heel, like Dory Jr. used to be with Jack Briscoe in Florida. But he still doesn't do anything that Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, the son of the plumber's son, wouldn't do. He's not going to be kicking people in the balls. He's not going to be trying to stab them in the face with a screwdriver. They'd have a tremendous match. And, you know, it would be big box office if the Rock is not over here doing something else besides with Roman. If they get Rock and Roman, they could do Cody and Cena, and fuck, they could put goddamn Hillbilly Jim in the opening match and sell out.
I hope so. We need a retro figure of Hillbilly Jim. There isn't one.
Jim is a retro figure. He's I love Hillbilly Jim. He is a heck of a guy, but he's an old-fashioned kind of guy, even back then.
With the exception of the opening match, which was Jim Powers versus the Genius, where the microphone broke and we didn't have to hear the poetry. My first card, I could recreate the entire lineup in retro figures minus one match, which was Andre the Giant versus Hillbilly Jim, replacing Big John Studd, who walked out or quit, or I think that's what it was. I don't have Hillbilly Jim. Everyone else on that card, I have a retro figure of.
Well, I bet, if you just write to Jim in Bowling Green, I bet you he could find something out in his garage to fix you up with.
I thought he lived in Mudlick.
Well, he went uptown when he started getting money.
All right, well, Jim, let's get one last topic here on this catch-up edition of the Drive Thru. Normal historical wrestling segments and fun. We'll bring back For the Files and guest the program next week.
Yes, and plus, and bearing in mind that I'm going to have a winter ice storm here in the metro Louisville area the day before we're supposed to record the next program. Hopefully I'll have power and we'll have a bunch of holiday catch-ups and miscellaneous topics on the experience also.
Well, Jim, our final topic here is something that a lot of people were sending in while we were off. Actually, it's two separate topics, but they both involve CM Punk. The first one, footage emerged, Madison Square Garden, a holiday show for the WWE, annual tradition. CM Punk, in a towel and shower cap, hits the ring to help the baby faces. I've seen split opinions on this. Some people think that's classic wrestling. This guy loves his wrestling. Others thought that's exactly the kind of cheesy stuff we don't want to see. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it also depends on your age group again, because now the younger people are used to seeing everything being played for laughs and being silly and being presented as silly, that when they see something that in another generation people would have instantly understood and have been jumping up and down screaming about, cheering, they don't get it. This is not new. I hate to bury our friend Mr. Brooks, but he researched an old wrestling idea that's been done, I don't know how, countless times. Right? Are most of the fans aware of this, Brian, or do you think I'm breaking new ground here already?
Oh, you're definitely breaking new ground for some of the younger fans, but explain.
Okay, well, back when this shit used to have to make sense, right? Back when the people were expected to believe what was going on was spontaneous and not all part of some grand scheme, there were certain things that you had to do to close loopholes. Let's say, for example, now when they're in the big NBA-sized arenas for a TV taping and the heels are beating up the babyface and you're expected to be upset about this and people, oh my God, if someone could save him, and then here comes the babyface running down finally. Well, in a building that size, you can believe it took somebody a minute or whatever to be made aware that, oh, your friend's in trouble, right? Oh, shit, I got to name sometimes the WWE, because they're trying to put a little more production pizzazz in this. They'll show the guy running in from the back on the screen, whatever. But back in the old days, when a lot of wrestling television was taped in television studios, let's say, for example, that Jerry Lawler's the big babyface in Memphis, and the second biggest babyface is Jimmy Valiant. Well, Jimmy Valiant wrestled in segment 3, and he did his interview, and they come back 2 minutes later, and here's Jerry Lawler wrestling. Now the heels jump him, and they're kicking the shit out of him, and you're expected to be worried about Jerry Lawler, but it would bury Jimmy Valiant, who the people know was just there. If he didn't come out to help Lawler, people would, well, fuck you, you asshole. You could have helped him. So one of the ways they used to delay that inevitability of happening is the heels would get a minute on the fucking baby face. They'd have him bleeding, or they'd have him in trouble, or they'd do whatever they were going to do. And then here would come the baby face in like slippers or shower thongs and goddamn under trunks, maybe with a towel around him and shampoo in his hair, and fucking make a mad dash to get, oh no, and the heels would bail out. And the people would instantly realize, oh my God, he would have been here earlier, but he was in the shower. And the classic example of this that I remember, really like 1973, I think it was because Harry Thornton was the announcer, I'm pretty sure. It might have been Sterling Brewer. Now that I think about it, it was Sterling Brewer, which means that the tape was probably from Birmingham, Alabama, the southern end of the Goulas territory. And Don Green had wrestled a match earlier in the show, and they had interviewed his daughter, who was probably like a 16-year-old teenage girl or whatever. But Don was a big baby face, and they interviewed his daughter. She was there either because it was her birthday or maybe it was Father's Day. Who knows what fucking, reason they came up with. And she just said something good about her father. And they go to the break, and they come back, and the heels are out there with their man. I think it was the Infernos and J.C. Dykes, but I may be wrong. I bet you Scott Teal would know. Anyway, point is, the fucking manager starts berating Don Green's daughter and telling her what a slime ball her father is. And when she has had enough of it, she reaches up and fucking shoves him or does whatever, and he slapped her. And when he slapped her, oh, geez, the people went crazy, and she's selling it. And goddamn, the announcer gets in between, and the heels are yelling and blah, blah, blah. And within like 30 seconds, here comes Don Green covered in fucking soap and under trunks only and barefoot and, fucking mad and crazy and going after these fucking people. And the place and the fans in the studio went crazy. But anyway, it's old as the hills in terms of, even in the Louisville Gardens or any other arena, from years ago, the fans knew that if there were 14 guys on the card, 7 of them were baby faces and 7 of them were heels. That means that the early match baby faces, the people, okay, the preliminaries, they've already left. They got to go wherever they're going, right? And many times they had. But those top baby faces that wanted to stay over in the main event, they either needed to have an excuse for not coming out and helping, or be too late, or whatever the case, or it would bury them. And the people knew they were in the fucking building. So there would be different reasons why that they left early or called away or on the phone or whatever the fuck.
What about the shower cap? Was the shower cap a bit much?
The shower cap was a fucking, well, again, it's a modern time. The shower cap looked fucking great. I've never seen that done. It's always been shampoo in the hair. But I can't believe, he's got a very svelte figure, does Punk, that he was able to find a towel that he could keep on while he got all the way in the ring and everything. Hopefully he had under trunks on underneath anyway. But yeah, that's what he was doing. It was an homage. They let the heels have time to get their heat, and then here comes fucking Punk to save the day. Somebody had to go and get him. And I see nothing wrong with that. Because again, the shower cap, but they had to see it. It's Madison Square Garden. They were full. They had to see it back in the cheap seats. So.
And for the people saying, well, here's Punk doing silly stuff now that he's in WWE, even if you think this is silly, this is the same kind of stuff he was doing at the end of AEW shows. I mean, that's a modern wrestling thing that WWE started and AEW immediately continued. Like, as soon as the televised portion's over, now it's like after hours. Now we can have some fun. So it's not a new thing. But on the topic of CM Punk and AEW, because it's been a topic forever, this past week, a story broke out, and I believe it all comes from quotes from Dave Meltzer.
A story broke out, and it had all it could take. It couldn't take anymore. It had to get the fuck out of there.
The headline, this is at itrwrestling.com, Inside the Ropes. Tony Khan believes CM Punk all-in footage, key to WBD media rights deal.
What?
That the airing of the footage with Jack Perry and CM Punk, introduced by the Young Bucks in the midst of their heel turn, weeks before they beat up Tony, that was the key to getting this big WBD media rights deal.
And how does he attribute that? How does he flesh that out?
Here's a quote from Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. I have discussed this with him. You have no idea how much. And it's always the same thing, that he believes that was the key to getting that deal. So I will tell you, I mean, in every discussion, there's not even a thought in his mind that he made a mistake there. If it helped making the deal, then he's right. But I, certainly didn't think long-term it was the right thing, even though, yes, it did help make Jack Perry a star.
What?
I just didn't think it was a positive for the company in the big picture. I guess the question that Dave doesn't really...
But wait, by what I was talking about, an explanation of, I attribute it because the ratings skyrocketed, or because we started selling out all the buildings, or because the merchandise went through the roof. Which of those things happened that I missed?
Yeah, see, that's the crazy thing. If you look at everything, the ratings went down. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, that if you look at everything since Jack Perry, CM Punk, that's when the real nosedive happened. In terms of getting Jack Perry over as a star, no, I don't think so. In terms of creating buzz and getting online discourse about AEW, none of it was positive.
I bet it was all bad.
It was all negative. So it can't be like, oh, WBD saw that everyone was talking about us and it had to get a deal. In that case, everyone's been talking about TNA for 25 fucking years. So I don't know. How could it be a positive? How could it get them the deal? How?
There's no potential possibility that any programming executive said, oh, that's the greatest thing I ever saw. That 30 seconds of footage with no audio of one of your fucking wrestlers front face locking the other one. So we'll give you a bunch more money. The ratings went down after. The houses went down after. People shit all over them on it. It deflated their regular fans because it was so bleh and nothing really. And at the same time, it alienated the Punk fans because they're like, this fucking clown, Jungle Jack, deserved it. It was all bad publicity. And Jack Perry ain't a star.
And again, let's talk about how it happened, because it didn't happen in a vacuum. It wasn't just like, hey, it's time, let's air the footage. Punk made some comments about Tony in that Ariel Helwani interview, and Tony had a hissy fit and said, now's the time to release the footage. That's right.
Oh, and by the way, it proved that Tony Khan lied and said he was in fear of his life because a guy turned and yelled at him for 4 seconds, maybe.
It made Jack Perry and Tony Khan look awful.
Yeah.
And the Young Bucks look awful because they were presenting it like it was a big deal. It showcased a star on another company's show and just made him a bigger star. So I think, well, I guess I'll ask you the question. Do you think Tony Khan maybe convinces himself of things and has a very difficult time acknowledging his faults as a booker and as a promoter? Because I don't remember him ever taking the blame for any of the things he actually did.
No, I mean, but that's two different things now, though. No, he never says anything was other than great. You know, and all the booking came together wonderfully, like in the tournament, in the gold block and the fucking cheese block or whatever. But that's different than, this wasn't something he really booked. Obviously, he didn't orchestrate it from the start. He just had an idea to put it on. And he should have known better than that. It wasn't even about his booking. He didn't have to admit his booking sucks. He could have just said, I'm not going to fucking go out and look the people on television straight in the eye and tell them that the guy did something to make me fear for my life, and then show footage of him not doing it and me looking like a pussy. And also, the guy's already gone and is in a bigger company and is drawing a fucking fortune. I don't need to show him really manhandling these fucking goofy kids on my roster that I still want to fucking use. And it didn't make Perry look good because he got fucking front face locked for being a smart ass and he had no rebuttal for it.
And what constitutes a star? It made him a star. How?
Well, because now, well, he got a van to ride around in. The neighborhood registered offender, you know, sold it to him secondhand. And maybe that's, I don't know how they think he's a star. He's a star in their eyes, in their world. He just doesn't sell any tickets, draw any money, get anybody to watch, or particularly have great matches.
He's a star, except for the fact that he's been off TV for a few months now and nobody's missed him.
Hey, well, and I was about to say a minute ago and we got sidetracked, but what do we know what happened to him?
He lost the title to Daniel Garcia. He had to go away.
Well, I'd be go away in shame too if fucking Garcia beat me.
Well, Jim, that is the drive-thru for today. Hold on, let's do this the right way.
Well, I thought we'd never get here. You know, I'm a COVID survivor, you know.
Will you stop with that? I had COVID too.
Well, you're not as old as me. I got less time to get over it.
All right, well, let's get over it right now. Of course, the experience returns in a few days, and the drive-thru, wherever you find your favorite drive-thrus, sometime soon. Of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go there. All the full episodes, clips of the episodes, the omnibus collections, the Travis Heckel artwork, the guest artwork, and there's a few omnibuses that are about to be up on that channel that are not going to be in the podcast feed just yet.
Omnibuy.
The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go through the archives, patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you access to the archives going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. Are we back open? Are we back rocking and rolling?
We never closed, and we always rocking and rolling, baby.
Well, you just
a reeling and a rocking.
You push,
but we are applying ourselves even more than ever before now. So just start sending money, and we'll send you merchandise. But big plans for February, the month of love, are coming up soon, and we'll announce those in the next week or 10 days.
It's the new Stan Lane variant figure with no pants.
Actually, it's a deviant figure. You're correct.
JimCornette.com for all you deviants. The law office of Stephen P. New sponsors the drive-thru. Jim, tell everybody about Stephen.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you what. You know what that is? That's my truffle pig rooting out underneath the shit to find the truffles. And that's what Stephen P. New will do for you. NewLawOffice.com, 877-50-STEVE. He's going to root and scoot through all the muck and the mud and the shit, and he's going to find the diamond in the middle of that turd, and he's going to find it for you, and he's going to win it for you in court. He will protect your rights, the rights of the common man. Don't be drugged down into the muck of avarice Stick with Stephen P. New, and he will root out your justice in court. 877-50-STEVE.
That's right. Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com. But until next time, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally ho!